Chapter 535. Ma Zhou retreated. It wasn't because he didn't want to eat something he couldn't even see on a normal day, but because of his pride. It was the pride of a scholar. He didn't want to see Zhang Feng when he was eating in such an environment. So he left, in a mansion not far from Tonghui Lane. Although this mansion couldn't be compared to the mansions of the high-ranking officials in Chong and City where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, it was still considered well off in Chong and City. There were 2 words hanging above the mansion. Chen Mansion. The owner was a pawnshop owner from Chong and West City, Chen Yun. At this moment, angry roars could be heard from within the house. Unfilial son. You unfilial son. If you dare to go to White Deer College, Lao Tzu will break your legs today. Father, what's wrong with White Deer College? What's wrong with it? F***ck your grandpa. Why don't you take a look at what you're learning? Learn from a chef? Bricklayer? Pig rearing? If you dare to go, Lao Tzu will immediately go to the Chong and local government to sever all ties with you. Father, get lost. If you want to go to the college, Lao Tzu from the Imperial College spent 1,000 strings of coins to bribe his connections. What's wrong with that? Do you have to go to White Deer College? Is your head squashed by the door? Master, Wanli is... Get lost. He's where he is today because of you. Uf***ker. Wanli is where he is today because you spoiled him. Someone come. From today onwards, lock the young master in his room. Without my permission, no one is allowed to let him out. Ah! Oh my God! What sin have I committed? Wanli, what's wrong with you? In the mansion, the mournful cries could be heard from afar. At the entrance of a house, there were large locks and wooden boards blocking the entrance of a room. A woman in a purple-black robe was pounding the ground and crying. Inside the door, there was complete silence. The woman pounded the ground and pressed her ear against the door to listen for any movement. When she heard that there was no sound in the room, she cried even louder. Son, don't take things too hard. That bastard Chen Tong isn't human. This is your own son. You can even bear to lock him up? It's good that my son is fine. If anything happens to him, I'll burn your house down. Mother, I'm fine. You should get up first. Your body is weak. Don't catch a cold. At this moment, a young man's voice sounded in the room. When the woman heard this, she hurriedly knelt on the ground and pressed her face against the wooden door. Son, you must not take things too hard. In this world, Mother only has you left. If you take things too hard, how can you let Mother live like this? Inside the room, a young man in a green and white robe leaned against the door and said indifferently, Mother, it's good that Father did this. Although he doesn't think highly of White Deer College, it's just the beginning. When the time comes, he will definitely let me out. The young man spoke very confidently. Looking at the notice, his eyes couldn't help but flash with a burning light. His name was Chen Wanli. Hearing this, the woman outside the door whispered worriedly again, Son, don't mention that place again. It's not a place we should go to. You don't know, but I've heard that it's a place prepared for those slaves and the 4 great devils. I've heard that those stubborn people in Chong and City have been forcibly sent there. Think about it, what can a bunch of stubborn people do? That's a fire pit. Don't mention it again. Okay. Chen Wanli didn't refute, which was rare. Although he wasn't a stubborn person, he had a few good friends who were in that circle. He had heard that those stubborn people were basically the sons of those high-ranking officials. How bad could a place where even the sons of high-ranking officials could go? Moreover, it was a place that the emperor valued so much. He didn't believe it. He had also run a money house and pawn shop with his father for a period of time. He was really fascinated by the so-called finance. Moreover, how could the place where the 4 great demon kings were located be an ordinary place? He had long wanted to see the stubborn upper circle, but those people didn't want to be associated with them. But now, this was an opportunity. What would it be like in 3 years? What would the bank's business be like then? The 4 demon kings all had considerable properties in Chong and City. If he could get in touch with them, how far would the Chen family's properties go? Not to mention, after 3 years, if he could make some achievements in a certain field, he could go to the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Agriculture, or even the Ministry of Civil Affairs. That would be the real transformation of a chicken into a phoenix. This was an opportunity. This was an opportunity to jump from a lowly businessman to a high-ranking person. Who didn't have dreams? Who didn't have expectations for the future? Naturally, Chen Wanli had them too. Therefore, even if he had to fall out with his family this time, he would go, even if he had to sever all ties with his father. His intuition told him that the future of White Deer College would definitely make the entire Tang dynasty tremble. Because before it was built, it was already on par with the Imperial College of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 536. Quick! The Imperial Edict is here. Let's go. I heard that the Emperor issued an Imperial Edict in Chang'an. He said that a new White Deer College was built outside Chang'an. He said that anyone who goes to the college will be admitted for free. What? Is there such a good thing? That's right. Just a private school alone costs 100 strings of coins a year. Not everyone is qualified to go. What is this White Deer College in Chang'an trying to do? How can ordinary people like us get involved with it? Yes. I heard that the Emperor has issued an Imperial Edict. It's being posted everywhere in the Luozhou government office. I also heard about it when I entered the city with the caravan. I heard that the college's classes are amazing. It hasn't been built yet, but it's already on the same level as that Imperial College. Have you heard about this Imperial College? In front of a tea stall in the Luozhou government office. A naked man was rubbing his toes while holding a bowl and drinking tea in large mouthfuls. More and more people gathered around him. Not only the ordinary people, but also some merchants could not help but stop and watch. They did not believe that such a college existed in the world. Not only was it free, but it was also helping the ordinary people. The sun must have risen from the west. Burly man, is what you said true? When the burly man heard this, he wiped the sweat off his face and flung it away. Instantly, the crowd could not help but step back. The burly man glared at him. How can this be false? You all know who my boss is, right? He's the Duke of Chun. A few days ago, he set off from Chang and to deliver some goods back to Luozhou. Along the way, he met someone from the palace. When my boss asked, I happened to be taking a dump in the thatch not far away. That's why I heard it for real. If you don't believe me, you can go to the government office and take a look. It's probably crowded with people now. Hearing the burly man's words, everyone could not sit still. Although everyone somewhat believed the words of the burly man, they couldn't help but choose not to believe the man's sloppy appearance. After all, this fellow was 2F** king disgusting. More and more people heard the news. There were more and more people rushing to the entrance of the mansion. Why? Because they were poor. Moreover, if he wanted to get rid of his poverty, he could only go to the study hall. Now, such a great thing had actually happened. How could this not make them seethe with excitement? The bartender of the tavern couldn't take it anymore. He threw away the triangular hat on his head and ran away. The strong men who worked as coolies in other taverns couldn't take it anymore. They all ran towards the entrance of the mansion like crazy. Basically, after hearing the news of the Imperial Edict, every family with a young adult or a 12-year-old child hurriedly ran to the gate of the manor. Although they couldn't read the words, there were people here who could read them. You only need to give them a coin, and they will tell you everything clearly. As for the person who paid the money and got the real news, he ran away with a giddy face. As he ran home, he was grinning from ear to ear. My family is going to have a top scholar. Ha ha ha. My son has finally made a comeback. God bless. My family finally has a good seedling, and in the house of a certain village outside Luozhou city. At this moment, an old man and a young man were squatting in the shade of the mud brick courtyard, weaving straw mats and bamboo baskets. On the wall behind them and in the courtyard, there were piles of woven baskets and bamboo products. There were grasshopper-like trinkets. There were also bamboo lanterns and so on. However, it seemed that business wasn't good. Many of the bamboo products were densely packed with black things. However, this was the livelihood of the family. Although the things in the courtyard could be sold for a lot of money, The things in front of them were only enough to feed the family. Old Lai, head of the family, something big has happened. Something big has happened. At this moment, on the plains not far away, a woman carrying a large basket hurried over. The middle-aged man named Old Lai's hand paused. In an instant, a bamboo strip pierced into his thumb. Old Lai raised his dark face full of frowns and angrily glared at the woman. He roared, "Damn woman! It's not even noon yet. How many baskets have you sold? You're back already?" Old Lai exploded with anger. He almost picked up the hatchet beside him. The young man squatting beside Old Lai, named Lai Ji, glanced at the woman in puzzlement. He lowered his head and continued weaving the bamboo characters in his hands. The woman not far away waved her hands even more vigorously. She seemed to be afraid of the middle-aged man. The woman was not old. She was about 30 years old. However, under the whips of life, her face was full of vicissitudes. Her face was full of fly droppings, which made her look even older. Head of the family, something big has happened. Something big has happened. Today, I heard that the emperor in the imperial palace gave us a great benefit. Old Lai, who had already raised his hatchet, was startled when he heard this. What benefit? Is the rent waived this year? Or is it food? While they were talking, the woman had already come to Old Lai's side. Without saying anything, she threw away the basket on her shoulder and knelt on the ground. She hugged Lai Ji and cried, "Son, my Lai family's ancestral grave is finally smoking. You can go to the school that the emperor personally ordered to open to study." Chapter 537. Lai Ji was 17 years old this year. He once dreamed of being like the scholars in the city, wearing clothes that would make the girls in the brothels in Luozhou scream in fright. But he was poor. He was so poor that all he had left was to weave and sell baskets all day. It was fine in the past. His father got married when he was old and had him when he was 40 years old. Previously, when he saw that the cooperative was established, good days were coming. His father wanted him to go to school, but he didn't expect that a plague of locusts would cause so much trouble that there was nothing left. He couldn't even afford the rent this year. He had also made plans with a few of his good friends to become officials together when the time came. Hao Chujun was especially happy. However, because of a plague of locusts, everyone seemed to have met with disaster. However, Lai Ji was a little confused when his mother suddenly hugged him and cried, "Mother, what's wrong with you? Old woman, what are you talking about? Speak properly. Go make a bowl of porridge for your mother." Oh. Lai Ji remembered that his mother had left early in the morning after cooking porridge. It was already past noon, so she must be hungry. He hurriedly wanted to leave, but Madame Lai hugged him. "No, I'm not hungry. Now, from today onwards, don't do such vulgar things." Old Lai's eyes widened when he heard that. "Old woman, if you don't explain yourself today, Lao Tzu will skin you alive. Come on if you have the ability. You only know how to weave baskets. Do you want your son to be like you in the future? Look, what's this?" This was the first time in 17 years that Madame Lai was angry. She even threw a ball of crumpled stuff at Old Lai's face. Old Lai couldn't recognize words. He was stunned when he saw the densely packed words and a red thing. He recognized this thing. It was the thing that was posted at the city gate or the entrance of the government office. But, "Old woman, what's this? Tell me." Lai Shi sobbed as she hugged Lai Ji and cried loudly. "Early this morning, someone came from the palace. I heard that His Majesty had decreed that all the children from poor families should go to the academy in Chang and to study. He also said that they would not need to pay and would be provided with food. When they graduate in 3 years, they could be given an official position. At the very least, they would be able to work in the royal family's industry. For this, I spent a copper coin to find out more about it." Old Lai automatically filtered out the 1 copper coin. Although that 1 copper coin was basically a family's daily rations, what about now? Compared to a single copper coin, he was willing to let go of this opportunity to let his only son and his Old Lai family rise to prominence. Old woman, you talk nicely. I'll get you some rice. Have some food first. Slow down, slow down. Oh right. Chicken, you mother asterisk cur. Go buy some offerings and kill an old hen. Later, we'll go to the ancestral grave to worship our ancestors. He was ecstatic in his old age. Even when he walked, there was wind behind him. My son is going to be an official. My son is going to rise to prominence. Ha ha ha. My Lai family is finally going to have a great talent. Ha ha ha. So old father was right. My Lai family really did have a great talent. Lai Ji was speechless, but this matter really had a huge impact on him. So much so that he wanted to go to the city immediately to see if what his mother said was true. Moreover, he wanted to find Hao Chu-jun and the others immediately to see if they would go. Perhaps they knew about this matter. But before he went out, he met Hao Chu-jun and the others who were hurrying over. Lai Ji, what are you doing? Quickly pack your things. We're going to Chang'an. Brother Lai Ji, good luck has fallen from the sky. Ha ha ha. It's really good luck. There's a white deer college in Chang'an City. Do you know about it? Let's go. Although the construction of that place hasn't started yet, the emperor has issued an imperial edict. What does this mean? This means that the emperor has set his sights on this place. Then we'll be able to become officials. The three of them ran breathlessly to the Lai family as they ran. Their voices were heard by Lai Ji's father immediately. Hearing this, Lai Ji's father hurriedly turned around and handed the wad of paper in his hand to Hao Chu-jun. Look at this. Are you sure this is Li Erlang's imperial edict? Hao Chu-jun nodded without looking. Yes, it's exactly this. Now, the entire Luozhou city is filled with this thing. I even heard that this thing. Ha ha ha, it's true, it's true. This woman didn't lie to me. My Lai family is finally going to have someone who can read and write and can become an official. Ha ha ha. After receiving the affirmation from Hao Chu-jun and the others, Lai Ji's father danced like a madman. Woman, quickly go and get me a jar of wine. I want to drink wine today. All right, cook those pickled wild rabbit meat for me. Today is our family's new year. Lai Ji felt that everything had gone crazy today. Old father had gone crazy. Old mother had gone crazy. Hao Chu-jun and the others had gone crazy. Even he had gone crazy. Why did all of this seem so unreal to him? Was there really such a good thing in this world? Chapter 538. Huzhou. It was close to the border of Tuyuhun. It was also the place that suffered the most from the locust plague. There were Qinling Mountains above and Ba Mountain below. On the right was Qilian Mountain, which was separated from Tuyuhun. It was like a basin that covered the damned locusts. The people inside couldn't get out, and the people outside couldn't get in. Fortunately, Li Lauer was wrong. It was the current emperor who thought of a clever idea to save Huzhou from a terrible situation. However, after the locusts left, what else was there on the ground except for the soil? On the originally fertile land, the sturdy farmers were all gone. Even the leaves on the trees were all bald. All of a sudden, this fertile place turned into a desolate place. There wasn't even much grain stored here. This was because there were places nearby that produced grain, and the new grain was about to be harvested. The old grain in the storehouse had already been sold long ago, or turned over to the treasury. At this moment, on the streets of Huzhou City, the people were huddled on both sides of the street listlessly. They stared at the road, waiting for something. Clang, clang, clang. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the sound of gongs rang out incessantly on the street, instantly attracting everyone's attention. The emperor has issued an imperial edict. Everyone, come out and listen to the imperial edict. There's an academy in Chang'an. Not only is it free, but it will also provide meals. From 12 years old to 30 years old, all of you can enroll in Chang'an White Deer College. Come, everyone, come out. The emperor has issued a great news. Come out. As the bailiffs of the Huzhou provincial governor's office shouted in the streets and alleys of Huzhou, everyone understood. After the crowd was stunned for a moment, the young men couldn't help but burst into an uproar. Oh my God! No wonder I had a dream last night. I dreamed of becoming a geneshire. So it's F asterisk king real. F asterisk CK. There's such a good thing for free? No, listen carefully. Why is that academy different from what we heard? Didn't they say that the academy only teaches literacy? Why are there so many tricks? The young and strong men who were standing under the archway discussed and were instantly dumbfounded. He hurriedly chased after the magistrate and asked, Sir, what's going on? Wasn't this school a place to study? Why are there so many paths? I don't know, but I heard that this thing is clearly written in the imperial edict. Not only can you learn how to cook with this thing, you can even enter the imperial kitchen and cook for the emperor. If you can learn other skills well, you can even work in the Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Agriculture. With the Yamen runner's explanation, everyone finally understood. All of them widened their eyes. So, this isn't an academy either. However, the man glared and threw a notice at the young man's face. Look for yourself. If you don't study and can't read, do you think His Majesty would spend so much effort to think of you? You still have to read this book. Otherwise, when you enter the palace and the emperor gives you something, how can you survive in the palace if you don't understand it? While speaking, the Yamen runner left. There were too many people around and he was annoyed. However, the people who stayed were all dumbfounded. All of them widened their eyes and looked at each other. What does this mean? This academy is a place to cultivate talents for the palace? Damn it! That's a good job. And the emperor didn't mention his identity. That is to say, whether it's us slaves or those children of high officials and dignitaries, they can all go there. A smart person said so. In an instant, everyone's eyes couldn't help but burn. What was this? This was the emperor's son who took pity on them. If they didn't go, wouldn't they be letting down the emperor's love? Moreover, this kind of good luck might not happen again in the future. Moreover, he didn't say anything else. He would provide food for them. That was enough. For the poor people, as long as they were given food, they would be willing to dig feces for them. And it was to dig feces for the palace. In the middle of the crowd, there was a strong, dark-skinned young man who was taller than a normal person. He listened to the crowd, but he only remembered 2 words in his mind. Provide food. Involuntarily, a burning light burst out from the young man's innocent eyes. Father, I'm going to the academy. I'm going to study in Chang'an. We're going to have a martial scholar in our family. The innocent young man ran all the way out of the gate of River State City, and then rushed toward a forest. In the forest not far away, a hunter was holding 3 pheasants under his arm and slowly walking down the mountain. At this moment he heard a roar. When the hunter heard that, he couldn't help but move his ears. That was the voice of his son. He couldn't help but shout, "Monkey, what are you doing? I'm here." In the distance, the hunter saw a small black dot jumping under a tree. He saw the small black dot looking at him, waving the green foxtail grass in his hand and shouting, "Father, Lao Tzu is going to study in Chang'an." Chapter 539. Chang'an City was surprisingly quiet these days. The expected crowded scene didn't happen. Not to mention Go Zi and the others, even the old Shuozai, old He, and the others did not come to the tavern. Other than going to work in the winery next door, they were all in a hurry to go home. This made Chang Chumo and the others confused. They were dumbfounded. Like fools, they squatted in front of the tavern and looked at the people who came and went. At this time, Chang Chumo and the others were covered with mud. The construction site of Daoshan Academy had started. In the past 3 days, Li Chengqian personally found a top feng shui master, Yuan Tiangang, to go to Daoshan Mountain to see the feng shui. It was amazing. Yuan Tiangang just didn't stop talking. Tut, tut, tut. It's amazing. This place is not as good as the dragon vein, but it is in the belly of the dragon. It belongs to the terrain surrounded by the dragon. This terrain can produce talents. But Chang Chumo and the others just stared with their eyes wide open, unable to see what was so good about this godforsaken place. There was no family here. How could this be a place for talents? This was clearly a place for talents. Okay? But this was not right. There was not even a grave around. How could this be a good place? But who was Yuan Tiangang? the number one faker in the Tang dynasty. No, he was the number one faker in the Tang dynasty. If he could say so, it made sense. Otherwise, why would the emperor keep him in the palace? After choosing the location, Chang Chumo simply sent out 3,000 city guards stationed outside Chang and city. They all came to chop trees. In one day, except for a few big trees that needed more than 3 people to hug, all the trees were cut down. At this time, the construction team that Li Changqian found before also hurried to the new battlefield. However, Zhang Feng locked himself in the room and didn't come out as if he had been possessed. It was obvious that he was drawing the layout of the new college. Was there a need for a layout? In Chang Chumo's words, he just needed to build a house according to the size of the Imperial College or Chang'an City. This place was at least 50,000 mu. However, what he gave Chang Chumo was a pair of supercilious eyes, a smirk on the back of his head, and the word idiot. This made Chang Chumo and the others even more curious. Wasn't this just an academy? Could it be that there was more to this? At this time, they had returned from the construction site and were already exhausted. But this damned guy actually locked the door of the tavern and hid in the room for God knows what. Do you guys think that Feng Zi and Jing Shu are? Zhang Sunchong put his 2 thumbs together. This caused Du Go to look down on him. Do you think Feng Zi is as lustful as you and Iron Bull? Miss Jing Shu is now in the Chang an academy. How can he be like you? Zhang Sunchong rolled his eyes. He rubbed his nose and waved his hand, saying, "Then tell me, what can Feng Zi do in the room? It can't be that she's hiding and crying because no one came for 3 days, right? I'll cry your ass off." At this time, Zhang Feng's tired voice was heard from the tavern. While they were talking, the door opened. The others couldn't help but poke their heads in and take a look inside. Chang Chumo even wrinkled his nose. Li Changqian gave a fist salute. Feng Zi, the academy is right above the call in the east of Shao Mountain. All the trees have been harvested, and now the craftsmen are laying the foundation. Take a look at this. Here, I'm done. Just tell them to follow this. There are plenty of stones there. Don't be stingy. Zhang Feng interrupted Li Changqian and threw a piece of paper to Li Changqian. Li Changqian frowned when he saw it. On this piece of paper, there were lines drawn in a disorderly manner. Moreover, it seemed to have been drawn on with sharpened charcoal. There were scratches on it. Not only that, although it spoke a lot, overall one could still roughly tell what it was. It was a circle of walls attached to the mountain. But what was the blank space in the middle? Why weren't the houses connected? Did he want to use a corridor? But that didn't seem right. Li Changqian and the others stared at the drawing and couldn't help but ask, "Feng Zi, why is your drawing the same as the one I built before? Taishan Temple outside the city is a little different?" Li Changqian almost blurted out. Fortunately, there was a temple called Taishan Temple outside Chang'an City. Although it wasn't big, it was on the way to Shao Mountain. It was only built in the last few years. Zhang Feng waved his hand without raising his head and said, "You can learn this in the textbooks in the future. This is called architecture. If you have nothing to do, go to the construction site and wander around. Don't stare at this place all day and ponder blindly." Seeing that Zhang Feng had spoken, Chang Chumo spread his hands and sat down on the chair, groaning. What's the point of building? The imperial edict has been issued for 3 days. Look at this. Even Guzi and the other bastards don't come. What's the use of this? In my opinion, No, Iron Bull. Zhang Feng shook his head. He looked at the door and said, "Even if only one person comes, I will teach him. Don't I have you guys?" Chapter 540. They could not help but look sullen. This imperial edict basically contained all the words that could be written on it. It was the longest imperial edict they had ever seen in their lives. In the past, the imperial edicts were basically written in thumb-sized fonts. But Zhang Feng's imperial edict, no, it was a pardon to be more precise. Basically, it took him 3 imperial edicts to explain everything he wanted to say clearly. But even so, no one came to ask. They did not know what Zhang Feng was insisting on. Wasn't there an academy in Chang'an? If you can't do it, why don't we buy a piece of land next to the Chang'an Academy and build a research institute there? Do we have to go through so much trouble to build such a thing in such a distant place? It would be a miracle if anyone went there. No, Fengzi. It's not that we want to scold you. Look at the streets of Chang'an. Let's not talk about other people. Basically, we can't even see the people who came here last time. Go and take a look at the streets now. Look at Guzi, Zhuzi, and Old He. They all seem to be very busy. What is this? They are all hiding from you. Zhang Feng was stunned when he heard that. No way. In the past few days, he had been thinking about whether to build the academy in the style of the Tang dynasty, or design it according to the style of the three-story buildings in the future. He really did not pay attention to this matter. Fengzi, tell me the truth. Is there something wrong with this imperial edict? Or is there something wrong with your teaching philosophy? Although we think this thing is really awesome, you have to know that not everyone will be like us. Li Chengqian reminded him. Zhang Feng could not help but be led astray. This matter was really a little strange. Originally, this set of philosophy was developed by combining the current atmosphere of the Tang dynasty, the system of slavery, and the way of technical schools. Logically speaking, this thing should be very popular. Why did no one come? Li Gan, have you guys heard any news recently? Li Chengqian spread out his hands and smiled bitterly. It's good to hear someone scolding you. But the strange thing is that it's as if no one knows about this matter. No one mentions it at all. Not only that, when everyone sees us, it's as if we're the gods of plague. Just who did we offend? Wei Shuyu also complained. Not only that, didn't we pull in a lot of stubborn disciples before? Now, this group of bastards didn't even want to go to Chang'an Academy. They were either pretending to be sick, or they were taken away by people from their mansions. They said that their son was stubborn and unworthy of entering the academy. When Zhang Feng heard this, he could not help but be dumbfounded. What was going on? How did everything become like this? Could it be that Lao Tzu had miscalculated? The people of this era indeed had a deep-rooted ideology, which was that everything was inferior and only reading was superior. But wasn't there someone teaching in Lao Tzu's academy? Was this necessary? F*ck thinking about it carefully, could it be those things about finance and chefs? That's right. Mother ***. Lao Tzu forgot one thing. Zhang Feng suddenly remembered something. That was because the people of this era looked down upon the most were the butchers and merchants. Lao Tzu actually forgot about this. However, Zhang Feng knew what kind of sensational effect it would cause in the Tang dynasty once these people finished their apprenticeship in the future. It could be said that it would change the overall food style of the Tang dynasty and the overall trade of the Tang dynasty. But the premise was that how could this be accepted by people? Zhang Feng read the emperor's imperial edict carefully 3 times and was sure that there was nothing wrong with it. Then where did the problem come from? Zhang Feng took out the imperial edict again and studied it carefully. Then, he made up his mind and said, F***. Lao Tzu doesn't care anymore. No one will come? You guys better be careful. Whoever graduates from Chang'an University is not allowed to step into Lao Tzu's academy for the rest of their lives. No one will come, right? Zhang Feng's eyes flashed with a touch of madness. If no one comes, Lao Tzu will come and show them how Lao Tzu will make all of you jinshi in 3 years. When the time comes, 5 jinshi in one school. I think, not to mention the Tang dynasty, even if it was 100 years ago and 100 years later, no one could do it except for Lao Tzu's academy. Zhang Feng's bold words did not arouse their enthusiasm. However, Chang Chumo sniffed. He elbowed Li Chengqian. Do you think Fengzi is really crazy? 5 jinshi in one school and Lao Tzu can't even read a few big words. Does he want me to be a jinshi? It wasn't just Chang Chumo himself who didn't believe it. Of the 5 people present, no one believed that Chang Chumo could pass the jinshi exam. But Li Chengqian and Du Go looked at each other. They thought it was impossible at first. But after thinking about it carefully, if it was someone else, it was really impossible. But it was hard to say for this crazy person. However, they knew one thing. In the future, their lives would be really difficult. Chapter 541. As expected, retribution came. After Zhang Feng confirmed that even if only one person came, he would still set up the college. Chang Chumo and the others had a hard time. Zhang Feng hired 3 large carts to transport all the food and clothing from the tavern to the construction site on Shao Mountain. How could he say that he wanted to share the joy with the people? But this time, the heavy responsibility of building a simple temporary residence fell on Li Chengqian and the others. But how could the imperial craftsmen let the crown prince do it? They hurried over to help. Using the chopped wood and the large stone that had just been transported, they mobilized more than 100 people and used half a day to build a house. Although it was rushed, the craftsmen didn't dare to be careless. Undergone Ziyuan's angry scolding, although it was a temporary residence, it was built according to the standards of the imperial garden. At this moment, Zhang Feng and the others sat in the stone house and instantly felt that it wasn't so hot anymore. The floor was paved with wooden planks. Although stepping on them was like stepping on the planks of a boat, at least it was moisture-proof. Feng Zi, what do you think of this house? Do you want our college to be like this in the future? Li Chengqian looked at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng curled his lips. It's okay, but you're good. Why are the craftsmen acting like they've taken aphrodisiac? I thought it would take at least 3 days to build this. He originally wanted to give these guys a difficult problem, but he didn't expect them to finish it in half a day. Feng Zi, what do you want to do with our White Deer College? Li Chengqian didn't want to talk about this matter. The more he talked about it, the more likely he would give himself away. He hurriedly changed the topic. If White Deer College is built according to the Imperial College, then this blueprint of yours, I don't understand. Zhang Feng shook his head and sat down beside Li Chengqian. You don't understand this, right? What do you think of our college compared to the Imperial College? We're short of people. No, we lack everything. Not to mention the students, we only have you as a teacher. When the time comes, the Chang, an academy will need an old Shotsai. By the way, Fengzi, how long have you not been to the Chang, an academy? Dugo wanted to ask something, but when he heard about the Chang, an academy, he could not help but think of a person. The Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang. He wondered if Zhang Feng knew that this person was in the academy. Zhang Feng scratched the back of his head. Well, aren't I busy? The old scholar didn't say anything, so I didn't go. That is to say, you haven't been to the academy since it opened? TSK, 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 TSK. Chang Chumo and the others were filled with disdain. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel anxious. Lao Tzu is always thinking about making money. Without money, how can the academy continue? Moreover, they didn't even get Lao Tzu's permission and secretly brought in 30 stubborn people. Lao Tzu said that the academy is yours to run. Do you really think that place is your playground? If it weren't for the old scholar, I think the few of you would have turned Lao Tzu's academy upside down. Zhang Feng directly threw the responsibility to them. He had said long ago that Li Chengqian and the others would be in charge of the Chang, an academy. Because the academy's original intention was not to run a formal academy. After the emergence of the Academy of Science, Zhang Feng had already given up on that place. No, could not be said that he had given up. The Chang and University was not given up. It was left to those bookworms and become the White Deer College's Chang, an office or a courier station. In this way, Chang'an and Shao Mountain would have a connection. However, Zhang Feng did not understand why they were talking about the Chang and University. He could not help but ask, why are you talking about this? Well, do you know Li Gang? Li Gang. Zhang Feng heard this and could not help but stare. He looked at Li Chengqian and said, you mean the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang? Yes. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He knew this person. In history, he resigned 3 years after Jingguan, and then focused on studying poetry. Before he died, he wrote a total of 3 books. However, why mention Li Gang at this time? What about Li Gang? Didn't we receive news a while ago that Li Gang had resigned from his post? So I used my connections to keep Mr. Li Gang in the Chang'an Academy. This time, it was Zhang Feng's turn to be completely dumbfounded. Li Gang in the academy? And he, as the dean, did not know anything about it? What kind of logic was this? However, this was not what he was thinking about now. What he was thinking about was that, in history, Li Gang resigned at the end of the 3rd year of Jingguan. After that, it was the time for Kong Yingda and Lu Deming to shine. However, the problem now was, what time was it now? It was the beginning of July of the 2nd year of Jingguan. Could it be his appearance had unknowingly accelerated the historical process of the Tang dynasty? No. If that was the case, then everything would have to be sped up. Chapter 542. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng continued to ask, "Then tell me, do you know why Li Gang resigned?" "Well, I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's because he learned about Chang in university and felt curious. Then he was moved by our sincerity," Chang Chumo said pretentiously. Zhang Feng curled his lips. But in the end, he could only be defined as an old scholar. Although the old scholar didn't reveal his real identity, he was dressed like a great scholar at the opening ceremony of the academy that day. He also had the ability to make Yu Shernan and the other 3 sign their names on the plaque. He was definitely an old scholar. Zhang Feng thought that with his ability and fame, he couldn't have stood at the entrance of the academy and held the fort. There was only one person who could have done it: the old scholar. He knew that in the Tang dynasty or in the ancient times, if one wanted to open a school, not only must he have the seal of the government but also the seal of the Ministry of Rights, the Ministry of Works, and other departments. There was also an important step, which was to destroy the school. But what about that day? Besides that one person, who else could it be? And after that? Zhang Feng didn't notice all this at first. But now that he thought about it carefully, this old scholar was really awesome. This way, Zhang Feng could leave the old elementary scholar in Chang'an with peace of mind. Moreover, this made Zhang Feng think that he couldn't be the only teacher in the academy. Otherwise, he would be exhausted to death, and he wouldn't be able to cope. The best way was to recruit more people. Not only did he have to recruit students, but he also had to slowly gather some great scholars. With these great people, there was no need to worry about White Deer College not being able to shine in the future. Even though there were only 6 people in the academy, including him, it didn't matter. When the imperial examination came out, there would be 5 scholars. No, once the 6 scholars appeared, they would be a living signboard. At the thought of this, Zhang Feng could not help but have a plan in his mind. Don't worry about Chang and university for now. Leave it to Mr. Li Gang and the old scholar. I'm not worried. Our main focus now is on White Deer College. Once the college is established, we'll bring them over. Then, the reputation of the college will naturally rise. Seeing Zhang Feng recover from Li Gang's attack so quickly, and in such a casual manner, Li Chengqian and the others couldn't help but be stunned. Originally, they thought that they would have to spend a lot of effort to persuade him to accept Mr. Li Gang's matter. After all, Li Gang's reputation was out there. But he didn't expect Zhang Feng's reaction to be so calm. This wasn't normal. This was the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang. They wanted to show off to the whole world. Unexpectedly, this guy seemed to have expected it. Their fists punched the air, and it was hard to imagine how uncomfortable it was. However, they didn't investigate the old scholar's background like Lao Tzu did. Or perhaps they didn't think that the old scholar was in that direction. Otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to say what happened today even if they were beaten to death. The few of them were rebuffed, but they didn't care. Chang Chumo said proudly, "Well, Fengzi, I used countless connections these days to get the construction plan of the Imperial College. Although our place is remote, we still have to fix what needs to be fixed. I think that our mountain gate should be as big as the city gate of Chang'an City. Also, the design of our house should be similar to that of the Imperial City." Hearing this, Li Chengqian couldn't help but nod. Fengzi Tainyo is right. Leave this matter to me. When the time comes, our college might become famous and the emperor might visit. What if the college isn't grand enough? Although we don't have many people now, once the house is fixed, there will naturally be people. What's wrong with you? You want to make this place into an imperial palace? You're really not afraid of death. Let me tell you, don't worry about this house. I've already thought about it. It's fine to talk about it here, but if those craftsmen hear it, you'll definitely lose your heads. Zhang Feng pointed at them and shouted, as if he hated the fact that they didn't fight for it. He waved his hand and said, Who said that Lao Tzu's college has no people? Just wait and see. Lao Tzu has already come up with the second set of plans these days. The imperial edict should have played its role. However, the reputation of our Chang and university is a little, so the people in Chang and are watching. So, it's time to move on to the second step of the plan. Hearing Zhang Feng's words, the few of them looked at each other and couldn't help but be confused. They asked in unison, "What did you think of? What did he think of?" He. Zhang Feng laughed. In an instant, the few of them couldn't help but stare at him with their eyes. This guy laughed so sinisterly. He must be up to something. This time, Zhang Feng had been holding back for so many days. Could it be that he was really planning this big move? Li Chengqian and the others couldn't help but continue to ask, "Fengzi, tell us, what big move are you planning?" Chapter 543. Li Chengqian and the others had already figured out Zhang Feng's usual tricks. Once this kid chuckled, it was definitely a big move. Once he talked about something seriously, it was basically because he was thinking about it in his heart. Either he was not sure about it or he was thinking of a way. Once this kid started to show off, it meant that he had already thought of a way to say what he wanted to say. Moreover, it was a big circle. That was why Zhang Feng was smiling so cheekily. Li Chengqian and the others immediately perked up. "Fengzi, you've seen our current situation. There are only 6 of us on this barren mountain. Once these craftsmen leave, this big college will probably be haunted. See, don't hold it in anymore. Tell us. I want to hear it." Zhang Feng rubbed his hands cheekily and placed a piece of charcoal that had been sharpened into the shape of a pencil on the table. He folded his arms and lay on the tiger-skinned recliner, looking at them. When they saw this, their eyes instantly turned red. "You don't want to tell us? Let's go, let's go. Boring, boring." Sigh. I thought Fengzi would come up with something. That's it? Motherf **Ker. This kid is definitely up to no good. Let's go, let's go. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Wait. **CK. When did Lao Tzu say that he won't tell you? Can't you let Lao Tzu brew for a while? Brew my ass. As Cheng Chumo spoke, he was about to take off his boots and hit Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng then said, "The locust plague in Chang'an is over, right?" His ambiguous words instantly stunned Li Chengqian and the others. Cheng Chumo raised the smelly boots up high, causing them to sniffle. Zhang Sun rushed over, snatched them, and threw them out. Instantly, the smell in the room became slightly better. One of Cheng Chumo's followers picked up the boots for him. Li Chengqian pointed at that person. Scram! That person recognized Li Chengqian. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and ran away. It was 2F** King Smelly. Zhang Feng pinched his nose and looked at Cheng Chumo's feet. There was a big black thing in this guy's feet. Zhang Feng's stomach couldn't help but twitch. Cheng Chumo didn't feel anything. After taking off his boots, he felt very cool. Sitting on the chair like that, she even raised her leg and shook it. Li Chengqian couldn't take it anymore and slapped Cheng Chumo on the head. "Go and wash Lao Tzu's feet. Otherwise, you're not allowed to take another step into this house." Cheng Chumo ran away with his tail between his legs. He had no choice. Since the crown prince had spoken, how could he dare to defy him? He simply took off his boots and rubbed his feet in the mud at the entrance of the house for a while. He then let a few of his lackeys smell it. After confirming that there was no stench, he ran into the house barefooted. Only then did the smell in the house fade slightly. Zhang Feng let out a long breath and hurriedly ran to the window. He leaned against the window and breathed in the fragrance of the soil. Only then did he say, "The locust plague in Chang'an should have passed. However, this period of time is originally the season for the people to harvest their food. But the food in this field, you know it too." Li Chengqian and the rest didn't understand what Zhang Feng was trying to say. They hurriedly asked, "Then, what does this have to do with our school?" "It has to do with it. Of course it has to do with it," Zhang Feng said with certainty. "Long ago, I told your father to stock up. Didn't I get a lot of things from that Jinla King's silly son? I know that. You actually scammed that crown prince Jinla until he was only left with his clothes. You're also impressive. But I'm very curious. What did you say that time? Li Changqian couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Prince Xinla's awkward expression when he came to visit him. Zhang Feng waved his hand. It's nothing to worry about. Let's not talk about it. What I want to talk about is that this grandson is really rich. Do you know how much I sold those things? I sold them for a total of 15,000 strings of cash. And usually, do you think Lao Tzu is really short of money? Chang Chumo's eyes widened. You're still talking about this? When our fathers went to your place that time, didn't UF * King scam them to death? Scram. That's the money they gave Lao Tzu for his drinks. It's my brother? Zhang Feng was about to explain when Li Changqian waved his hand and interrupted Chang Chumo. He asked, then, what did you do with the money? Buy food. Buy food? Li Changqian was dumbfounded. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that you used all the money earned from the car factory and the brewery to buy food? Li Changqian was dumbfounded. Why did he buy so much food at this time? But he couldn't help but think of something uncertain. Could this kid be thinking of the same thing as what he told his father last time about stocking up on food? That would be terrifying. How much food did this kid stock up on? Why didn't he take it out before? Zhang Feng touched his nose and looked at them with an incredulous expression. Don't think about it. I only stocked up a little. It's only 20,000 dawn of food. PFFF. Chapter 544. They were dumbfounded. 20,000 dawn. Damn it! What did 20,000 dawn of grain mean? What did it mean? Although the emperor had stockpiled some grain before, it was only tens of thousands of dawn. Although the emperor had misunderstood Zhang Feng's words, more importantly, how could Chang and Guanyi have any extra grain at that time? If they made a big move, they would definitely attract Guanlong's attention. Therefore, they could only inform the state governments of this matter secretly and let them stockpile grain secretly. But now that the locust plague was over, the shortage of grain finally broke out in Chang'an. Now, the emperor had basically not eaten for 3 days because of this matter. He was so worried that his hair turned white. It was impossible to get grain from outside the Guanyi. After all, this locust plague was national in nature. However, the disaster in the south was much smaller. Although there was grain in the south, it would take at least half a month or a month to harvest and transport the grain from the south. After all, along the way there were disasters everywhere. No one dared to sell all the grain. This was what worried Li Shimin. And now, one could imagine what these 20,000 dawn of grain meant to Chang'an. It meant that at least 20,000 people could be saved from starvation. 20,000 people. Li Changqian's eyes were about to turn red. He wished he could grow wings and fly back to the palace to tell his father about this matter. Fengzi, are you sure you have 20,000 dawn of grain? Li Changqian grabbed Zhang Feng's hand subconsciously. This matter was too important to him. His current position in the court was somewhat awkward. Although he was the crown prince and had always been very serious in his work, he didn't have anything that could make the other officials sit up and take notice of him. This was a very dangerous thing to do. If at this time Zhang Feng felt that way, not only did Li Changqian tightly grab both of his hands, his entire face was trembling with excitement, and his gaze was as if he was looking at a peerless beauty. Zhang Feng's hair stood on end, and his entire body was suddenly covered in goosebumps. If it weren't for his strong restraint, he would have kicked Li Changqian's third leg until it exploded. Dugo couldn't bear to watch any longer. He nudged Li Changqian. Li Changqian did not react. In the end, Zhang Feng could not hold back the disgust in his heart. He kicked Li Changqian over. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. F***ck. Glass actually appeared in the Tang dynasty? F***ck. F***ck. Damn it. What the hell was this? Zhang Feng secretly swore in his heart that he would definitely keep a certain distance from this grandson in the future. This was too mother **king annoying. Although Li Changqian had fallen flat on his face, he still crawled up with an unsightly expression. He didn't even bother to pat the mud off his buttocks. He was about to step forward again when he was stopped by Zhang Feng. Stop, if you have something to say, we can talk. Be good or else Lao Tzu will ask your father to bring you back. Zhang Feng pointed at Li Changqian and shouted. Only then did Li Chengqian come back to his senses. Zhang Sun hurriedly went forward to smooth things over for Li Chengqian. That, Fengzi, don't blame him. You also know that these days, after the locust plague, everyone has tightened their belts and is lacking in food. But 20,000 dan of food suddenly appeared in your place. Tell me who wouldn't be excited to the point of going crazy. So, Fengzi, you can only talk about this in front of your brothers. Don't tell anyone else. This is something that can take people's lives. Outside the door, Gan Ziyuan seemed to have something to report. But at Zhang Feng's door, he saw something that he would never forget in his life. The sons of the High Dukes and the Crown Prince were all standing in front of Zhang Feng, the shopkeeper. And that kid actually kicked the Crown Prince to the ground? F*ck this. F*ck this. Did Lao Tzu see a ghost? Gan Ziyuan couldn't help but lie on the ground as if his whole body was shaking. However, his eyes were still fixed on Li Chengqian. He saw Li Chengqian stand up as if nothing had happened and ask that kid in a tone as if he was asking for advice. Then what did he say? He even asked the emperor to drag the crown prince back? Oh my God! Was Lao Tzu dreaming? He was the crown prince. F*ck this. He couldn't take it anymore. Lao Tzu couldn't see it. He had to treat it as a dream. If the crown prince were to see this, then at the very least, he wouldn't be able to keep this pair of shields. At the very least, not only would he lose his livelihood, but his brothers would also lose their lives here. After all, since ancient times, what hadn't the royal family done to cover up their shame? Right now, Gan Ziyuan's legs were trembling. He was lying on the ground, and his head was buzzing. No, Lao Tzu didn't see anything. He didn't see anything. He didn't hear anything. Lao Tzu didn't come here. Alright, where is this? What is Lao Tzu doing here? While he was talking nonsense, Gan Ziyuan hurriedly ran away. Along the way, he left behind the smell of urine. Chapter 545. Inside the room. At this time, Li Chengqian had finally recovered. However, the few people in the room did not notice that Gan Ziyuan was outside. Otherwise, how could it be so good? However, at this time, Li Chengqian suppressed the thought of robbing Zhang Feng and said, Fengzi, do you know that although the government has stepped in and forcibly suppressed the grain price, it has skyrocketed to 12 copper coins per caddy. There is even a faint trend of price increase. How are you going to deal with the 20,000 don of grain in your hand? Also, how come I don't know what channel you used to buy the grain? Shouldn't you tell me about this channel? After all, you also know that I have a big family and a big business. Get lost. Zhang Feng could tell that this guy was still clinging onto the 20,000 don of grain and wouldn't let go even if he died. This grain was bought by Lao Tzu from that barbarian merchant. That big fool thought that Lao Tzu bought it at a high price. He really thought that Lao Tzu was stupid. Hee. But that old guy is probably looking for me all over the streets of Chong and City right now. Beard. Li Chengqian was relieved. The grain of the Tang dynasty was basically reported in the treasury. Except for the grain of the big families and the grain of the foreign merchants, basically all the grain of the Tang dynasty was recorded in a book. And this barbarian merchant was one of the most uncontrollable people. Every time these fellows came to the Great Tang, as long as they saw something that could earn them money, they would do their utmost to hoard it. Perhaps it was because the grain was about to be harvested and the price of old grain would inevitably drop. So when the price was about to drop, they met Zhang Feng. It was unknown whether this beard was unlucky or not. Why did he meet Zhang Feng? How good would it be if he met this crown prince? Fengzi, what are you going to do with the 20,000 don of grain? This was what everyone was looking forward to the most. As for where the grain came from, it was not a problem. The key now was that there was a shortage of grain in the Tang dynasty. If the person in front of them wasn't Zhang Feng, then these fellows would have definitely snatched it. However, they didn't dare to snatch Zhang Feng's things. If Lao Tzu found out about this, they would be in deep trouble. This was also what the few of them were most worried about. Under the trend of high benefits, people could do anything. There was also a saying that went, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. If the 20,000 don of grain were to be known by others, then things were going to get really interesting. Zhang Feng snapped his fingers. Then he said slowly, "Since I only let you know today, you can rest assured that the 20,000 dawn of grain will definitely be stored in a place that none of you will ever think of. And this matter, other than the few of you, only that hapless bearded man knows about it. But now, that bearded man will probably never find me. Are you sure? If that kid were to play dirty and expose this matter, Fengzi, do you know what kind of impact these 20,000 dawn of grain would have?" Li Chengqian cautiously said. Killing intent had already appeared in the depths of his eyes. This bearded man couldn't be allowed to live. However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made him feel completely at ease. "Yes. Don't worry, don't worry. That bastard doesn't even know Lao Tzu's name, let alone my face. Lao Tzu put on makeup and a fake beard. He even sprinkled cumin powder on himself before making the deal with him. Now, even if Lao Tzu were to stand in front of him, he definitely wouldn't be able to recognize me. What a joke. Wasn't he just speaking in a foreign accent? Just casually saying, 'work hard,' would undoubtedly lead the conflict to the Japanese. When the time came, even if the bearded man wanted to find trouble, he would find trouble with the Japanese. All right, the few of you, leave some for me in Chang'an for the next few days. This grain is our chance to make a name for ourselves. Once this batch of rations appears, the reputation of our White Deer Academy will be thoroughly resounded. Therefore, in the next few days, the few of you better hurry up and build the academy. When the number of people increases, you will have plenty of time to work. I reckon that if we don't talk about other things, you won't even be able to sleep if you want to. Also, Li Chengqian, go back and ask your father about the chicken and duck army I saw outside Chang'an City. If he hasn't dealt with it yet, bring it over for me. It will be of great use when the time comes. Oh right, I want those pigs too. It would be best if you could find me a few blacksmiths." Li Chengqian and the others were dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with question marks. Grain, chickens, ducks, pigs, and blacksmiths? What was he going to do? They could understand that chickens, ducks, pigs, and grain were all related to eating and drinking. However, blacksmiths were. Others didn't know, but Li Chengqian did. No one knew about this profession in other places. But in the palace, it was a unique profession. Every person who wanted to be a eunuch had to undergo the cleansing of their body by a craftsman before they could enter the palace. Suddenly, the few of them couldn't help but touch their crotches and take a step back. Was this bastard thinking of? Chapter 546. How could Zhang Feng not notice their actions? He rolled his eyes and said, "Don't worry, you can find this craftsman. He won't be used on you, so don't worry. Also, this matter must be kept a secret. All right, if you can find an old eunuch, that would be great." Damn it, this was not targeted at them? Right now, there were only a few of them here. And not only did he want to find a craftsman, but he also wanted to find an old eunuch. Not only did he want to beat people, but he also wanted to beat ghosts. Hey, Fengzi, we're brothers, aren't we? Are you provoked by this imperial edict? Don't take it too hard. That's right, Fengzi. What's there to take it too hard? Isn't it just an imperial edict? Isn't it just that you didn't find anyone? If that's the case, I'll go back today and tell my father to ask Lord Zhangsun again to see if he can get another imperial edict. What do you think? At first, Zhang Feng was quite touched by their words. But when he listened to them, why did the meaning change? Zhang Feng couldn't help but wave his hand. Get lost, your second uncle. Lao Tzu asked Ning to assassinate. Just do it and be done with it. Why are you still chattering here? You'll find out about this craftsman in the future. Also, I have something to tell you. No, Fengzi, you have to make it clear when the time comes. Li Chengqian interrupted Zhang Feng and pressed him down on the recliner. He said, "We know a little about this grain. You want to use the grain as bait to lure those students. I can understand the chicken and duck, but the pig. To put it bluntly, there aren't many people who would eat this pig. Apart from the poor commoners who would eat a little, and the pork that you've processed with special methods to make it edible, the pork on the market, let alone the rich, even those who have a little money would only buy it to feed their cats and dogs. The pork of the Tang dynasty was very pungent. There was also a strong earthy smell, so in terms of meat, mutton occupied the main position. As for pigs, except for those that were born within 3 months, the rest of the pigs were basically bred or used as sows. Therefore, in the Tang dynasty not many people ate pork. But even so, those poor people were still scrambling for it. Why? Poor. They couldn't afford anything else. He could only get a little of the stuff and then use the big pot that was used to boil bath water to boil a big pot. Then, he added some flour paste, cumin powder, and a big handful of the bitter salt from before the fine salt came out. Only then was it barely edible. Other than that, not many people were interested in this pork. Those with money went to buy mutton, chicken, or duck. Who the f***ck would buy such a thing that smelled so bad? But at this time, what did Zhang Feng want these pigs for? They had heard from Li Shimin that Zhang Feng was going to use a large number of pigs to deal with the locusts, and then sell them. At first, they just thought it was a joke, or maybe he just wanted to buy some small pork. But now, those pigs were more ferocious than the locusts. Wherever they went, the ground was as if it had been plowed. Not to mention the locusts, even the rotten things in the ground were eaten up. This time, not to mention the little piglets, all the pigs were shiny and smooth. Otherwise, why would Butcher Zheng have the money to send over a whole fat pig? And to entertain the people on the whole street. This little bit of meat. If it weren't for the 10 sheep sent by the Zhang mansion, and the 50 sheep that Zhou Dafu and the others brought along when they came, how could it be enough? But now, Zhang Feng actually wanted to buy something that couldn't be sold and couldn't even be given away. What for? Li Changqian couldn't help but be confused. Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. For this matter, just do as I say. Those pigs will definitely be of great use in 3 months. So don't worry. As for those grains, chickens, and ducks, I naturally have a use for them. Isn't there a famine now? And our 50,000 mu of land is barren. Isn't our college not famous enough? But if I use all of these 20,000 dawn of grain to give porridge, what do you think the effect will be? Buzz! Li Changqian and the others' minds couldn't help but explode. 20,000 dawn of grain. All of it to give porridge? What the hell? Feng Zi had really gone crazy. If he used these 20,000 dawn of grain for other things, even if he sold them at the original price, it would still be acceptable. But now, he actually wanted to give porridge? But if you want to give porridge, then so be it. This is understandable. You want to spread the name of White Deer College. But what's up with the chickens and ducks? And those pigs? Do you want to keep these things here in captivity? Do you know that outside Chang'an City, those things that even the emperor was worried sick about were almost given away as gifts? No. Now, even if they were given away, no one would dare to accept them. Most importantly, these things were too much of a waste of grain. Who could afford to rear 57,000 chickens, ducks, and thousands of fat pigs? Who could? Chapter 547. Li Changqian left Shao Mountain in a daze. Then, he rode his horse and galloped back to the palace. The first thing he did after returning to the palace was to jump into the lake in the imperial garden to calm himself down. He carefully recalled what Zhang Feng had said before, then ran to Taiji Palace in a daze. The moment he entered Taiji Palace, Li Changqian heard Li Shimin's angry roar. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and wait outside the imperial study. After a while, the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture walked out of the imperial study listlessly. They bowed to Li Changqian and left in a hurry. Li Changqian then hurried into the imperial study. Li Shimin was furious. A few days ago, he had heard about the famine. Although they had already prepared for it, and it was not to the extent of a major famine, the people could only eat a bowl of porridge that was as thin as water for a meal. It was still okay in the past because there were wild vegetables and weeds. But now, they were all eaten up by the locusts. Even the shoots from the willow trees had been eaten up long ago, not to mention the weeds that had just sprouted from the ground. In the eyes of the people, they were now delicacies. Li Shimin naturally opened the grain storage to provide relief for the people in such a situation. But today, the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture reported that there were only 40,000 dan of grain left in Chang'an. What should they do? What else could they do? Empress Zhangsun couldn't help but reduce all the grain and food standards in the imperial palace to the lowest. But what could they do? Li Shimin had been eating porridge for 3 days. He was so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back and his eyes were seeing stars. But just now, he received another document. It was about the grain from outside the pass. It would take at least half a month for it to arrive. As for why, although the people from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Works didn't say, how could Li Shimin not think of the reason? If he was targeting Guanlong, wouldn't Guanlong target them as well? What's more, Jiangnan was the largest source of grain in the Tang dynasty, except for Guanzhong and other places. And it just so happened that this place was the territory of the Guanlong people. Above them were the territories of the Chui clan from Shandong. Below them were the territories of the Chui clan from Boling, the Chui clan from Qinghe, the Lu clan from Fanyang, the Li clan from Zhao County, the Zhang clan from Xingyang, and the Wang clan from Taiyuan. These were the most prosperous places in the Tang dynasty. But if this matter alarmed them and if the 5 families joined forces with Guanlong, then that was why Li Shimin was so angry. He did not know how long Li Shimin had been standing there. Li Shimin flicked his sleeve and said, "What are you doing here?" "Father, I have an important matter." "Speak." Li Shimin waved his hand and asked with a frown. Li Chengqian looked at Xiao Gizi and said, "Today, I found out from Zhang Feng that he has 20,000 dan of grain in his hands." Silence. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Li Shimin was drinking tea, but when he heard the words 20,000 dan of grain, he could not help but be stunned. Not only was Li Shimin stunned, but Xiao Gizi was also stunned. Xiao Gizi, who was in the imperial study, was also stunned. After a while, Li Shimin asked with a hurried breath, "Is what you said true? Brother Zhang Feng really has 20,000 dan of grain in his hands?" "Yes. Everything I said is true. I dare not lie." Bang! The teacup in Li Shimin's hand trembled and fell to the ground, smashing into pieces. "Why don't you tell me, why does Brother Zhang Feng have so much grain in his hands?" Li Shimin could not help but be excited. Right now, the grain in the pass was about to run out. Although 20,000 dan of grain might not be much to the tens of thousands of people in Chang'an, but at least it could let these tens of thousands of people survive for 10 more days. When the time came and the 70,000 dan of grain in the treasury were added, the grain shortage in Chang'an could be solved in an instant. What was this? This was good news from the heavens. Imperial Father, although it's true that Feng has 20,000 dan of grain, this kid is crazy. Li Shimin was a little confused. He waved his hand and hurriedly walked down from the dragon throne. Xiao Gizi hurriedly brought a stool and placed it in front of Li Chengqian. Li Shimin sat opposite Li Chengqian and asked, "Tell me slowly, what's going on? What's wrong with Feng? Was Zhang Feng crazy?" Li Shimin absolutely did not believe it. If this kid was crazy, then Li Shimin would definitely slaughter him. But this kid cherished his life so much. How could he be so reckless? Li Shimin did not believe it. Li Chengqian then said, "Imperial Father, the situation is like this. The imperial edict has been issued for 3 days, but there is no news at all, so we are thinking about how to recruit people." But Feng said he has a way. Li Shimin furrowed his brows. What does this have to do with the 20,000 dan of grain? If he wants, then I can issue an imperial edict. Can't that do it? Li Chengqian laughed bitterly. "Imperial Father, this son said the same thing at that time, but Zhang Feng said he thought of a better way." "What way?" "Feng said he wants to distribute porridge in White Deer College. He wants to use all 20,000 dan of grain to distribute porridge, and he wants to gather them outside Chang'an City. He wants all the chickens, ducks, and pigs that no one knows what to do with. Not only that, he also wants craftsmen." Chapter 548. Li Shimin was dumbfounded. It was easy to understand if it was something else. After all, it was chickens and ducks. With Li Chengqian saying this, Li Shimin suddenly thought of an idea. That's right. The chickens and ducks of the Tang dynasty were now idle, and they needed food to feed them. However, food was what the Tang dynasty lacked. Now, no one would want these things even if they were given away. Why? Wasn't it because there was no food to feed them? Looking at the fat and strong chickens and ducks, Li Shimin instantly patted his head. It was also very good to mince all the chickens and ducks and put them in the porridge. Not only could it reduce the amount of food, but it could also let people eat meat and increase their physical strength. This Fengzi really could come up with a brilliant idea. Little Gizi, write an edict. Tell all the prefectures to follow the standard of giving porridge. Add 5 chickens and ducks to each pot. They must use as much food as they need. Whoever dares to embezzle food will be executed by me. Little Gizi hurriedly bowed. As you wish. Go on. While speaking, Li Shimin glanced at Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian said with a constipated expression, Father, you forgot 2 things. Fengzi not only wants chickens and ducks, but also pigs. He wants all the pigs that you are going to burn. And he wants a blacksmith. Tell me, these 2 things are completely unrelated. This Fengzi, if he is not crazy, then what is he? This Li Shimin was also dumbfounded. He couldn't understand what Zhang Feng was thinking now. Although the pork is a bit smelly, at the very least, it can still be swallowed by the commoners during the famine if it's processed. But why did he want a blacksmith? Did he want to open a course in this field in the academy? Li Shimin couldn't understand Zhang Feng's current approach. Perhaps Fengzi really was crazy, however. The 20,000 dawn of grain and the porridge distribution event had solved Li Shimin's big problem. Although he didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted to do, Li Shimin simply didn't think about it anymore. After all, he knew that this kid wouldn't do that kind of loss-making business. Perhaps he was holding back some evil thoughts in his heart. All right, I understand. Just do as Zhang Feng says for the time being. Although that kid seems a little unreliable, the things involved are really things that you need to learn seriously. You may leave. Yes, your son will take his leave. Li Chengqian smiled bitterly. He knew this would happen. However, if she didn't inform Imperial Father, there would definitely be a big problem when the time came. At the very least, it would make Imperial Father feel at ease. However, just as Li Chengqian walked out of the Imperial study and arrived at the Imperial garden, he bumped into Li Yuan, who was sitting on a gauze curtain and strolling blindly. The moment Li Yuan saw Li Chengqian, he hurriedly waved his hand. Gone. Come, come, come. Li Chengqian was startled when he heard this and hastily went forward to pay his respects. Imperial grandson Chengqian greets retired emperor. Ha ha ha, all right. This is the Imperial garden. There's no need for such mortal etiquette. I seem to have been startled. I haven't seen you for almost a month. Kid, you haven't come to my place for a month. What have you been busy with? This Imperial grandson has recently been learning things in the academy opened by brother Zhang Feng, so I forgot to pay my respects to retired emperor. Please forgive me, retired emperor. Ha ha ha, that kid. Li Yuan laughed brightly. Afterwards, he got off the carriage and walked into the pavilion in the middle of the lake in the Imperial garden. He sat opposite Li Chengqian. Just as the 2 of them sat down, a palace maid brought over fruits from Jinla. Gone. Tell me about that kid Zhang Feng. What has he been up to recently? Didn't I hear that kid bought that piece of land in Shao Mountain and even set up some White Deer College there? How is it now? This, replying to retired emperor, everything is proceeding smoothly. Then there's the recruitment of students. I have high hopes for this academy. This impenetrable shield and that indestructible spear, I really want them. When the time comes, I'll also go to the academy. If I can become a teacher, that would be pretty good. Ha ha ha. All right. It's rare to see you. Come. Let's play. Li Chengqian was speechless. Li Yuan waved his hand. In an instant, several of his concubines swayed their waists and walked over. They sat opposite Li Yuan and Li Chengqian. The current poker cards not only far surpassed the quality of the first time he played cards with Zhang Feng in the tavern. Although they were also made of paper, at the very least they were more durable. With all the cards in place, Li Yuan seemed to have gotten a good hand. He urged these people to play while saying, "Why did you enter the palace this time? Did that kid run into some kind of trouble? You're a dignified crown prince. Don't look for your father for everything. After all, he's worried about the food shortage." Imperial grandson remembers retired emperor's teachings. It's just that that kid stockpiled 20,000 dawn of food and prepared to give out porridge at White Deer College. He also needs the tens of thousands of chickens, ducks, and pigs that Chong and has stockpiled. He also needs a carpenter. That's why Imperial Grandson can't make a decision. So I looked for father to make a decision. Hearing this, Li Yuan was instantly stunned. What did you say? Chapter 549. Li Yuan was completely dumbfounded. He had seen people who were out of tune before, but he had never seen someone so out of tune. You said you were awesome and daring with 20,000 dan of grain to give out porridge. You wanted chickens, ducks, and pigs. These were all small matters. It could be said that you helped the emperor solve a big problem. After all, those things consumed an astronomical amount of grain in a day. But what did you want a blacksmith for? At this moment, Li Yuan's poker game was no longer as fragrant. He really wanted to know if this Feng Zi had really gone crazy. A few days ago, he heard that the emperor had issued a decree praising his White Deer College. Moreover, it had only been a few days. Logically speaking, if it was someone else, wouldn't they be laughing in their sleep? But this kid? He always did things so unconventionally. Who was Li Yuan? With a slight turn of his head, he understood what Zhang Feng wanted to do. He was just trying to build up the reputation of his new academy. But you're just trying to create momentum. What are you trying to do by creating these things? Could it be that you want to? Li Yuan couldn't help but glance at Li Chengxian's crotch. In an instant, Li Chengxian's face turned red. Ha ha ha, fine, fine. I won't tease you anymore. If you are busy, you can go do it. When I'm free, I will sign a contract with the White Deer Academy and stay there for a period of time. I heard from Mr. Yuan that the White Deer Academy is a good place to nurture outstanding talents. Find a good place for me to build a villa. That little brat won my villa. Imperial Grandson will remember. Li Yuan waved his hand and spread out the cards in his hand. He said, but we won this round. Pay up, pay up. Li Chengxian finally escaped from Li Yuan's evil clutches. As soon as he returned to the Eastern Palace, he saw Cheng Chumo and the others. They were already waiting there and arguing about something. Seeing Li Chengxian enter, they hurriedly asked, how was it? Did the emperor say yes? Li Chengxian sat down on the soft couch. He said, what can he say? Of course he allowed it. However, what's Feng Zi up to this time? He wants that Sa Zhu and some blacksmith. I don't understand at all. Isn't that so? I just met Shuyu's father and asked him about it. When Wei Shuyu and the others heard this, they hurriedly asked, then what did Prime Minister Wei say? Dugo shrugged. What else can I say? At that time, my father and the others were all there. When I said that, they all laughed. What else could they say? Right now, all they can think about is food. They don't know what Feng Zi wants to do. Alas! Motherf asterisk Ker. This Feng Zi is going to do something big this time. They instantly sat down on the chairs. Li Chengxian rubbed his forehead. Shuyu, go to the Department of Internal Servants tomorrow morning and ask if there are any old eunuchs who want to return home recently, or those who have just returned home. Don't forget this matter. Bring him to see me tomorrow, I want to. Wei Shuyu glanced at Li Chengxian. Don't you know to call your little eunuch to the Department of Internal Servants? Why must you wait until tomorrow morning? Aren't you tired? Li Chengxian slapped his forehead. Someone come. Quickly take the Crown Prince's order to the Department of Internal Servants and ask if there are any old eunuchs who have just returned home recently. Yes. Everyone waited for about an hour. Just as Cheng Chumo was snoring, a little eunuch from the Eastern Palace hurriedly led in an old eunuch with white hair and a beard. The old eunuch's back was arched, and he held a thin book in his arms. This old servant greets Your Highness the Crown Prince. Rise. This prince asks you, are there any old eunuchs in the Department of Internal Servants that want to return home recently? Replying to Your Highness the Crown Prince, there are. In a month, this old servant will return home. Oh! Hearing this, the others couldn't help but be interested. Li Chengxian waved his hand and dismissed everyone. Then he said, rise! Yes. This prince asks you, do you still remember the matter of losing your virginity? The old eunuch's wrinkled face couldn't help but twitch. If anyone else had asked this, he would have fought with his life on the line. In any case, he was already over 70 years old and had lived long enough. But this was the crown prince. He didn't dare. To people like him, this was a great humiliation. Moreover, he was asking in front of so many people. The old eunuch hesitated for a long time before saying in a muffled voice, "Replying to your highness the crown prince, this old servant still remembers." Although this was a great humiliation to him, the crown prince had asked, so he didn't dare to hide anything. "Don't worry. This prince also understands your difficulties. Don't worry. When the time comes, this prince will only arrange for a courtyard to live out his old age in peace." The old eunuch was ecstatic. This old servant thanks the crown prince for his grace. This old servant is 76 years old this year, but when this old servant was 12 years old, I was sold into the palace and lost my virginity. Although it's been 60 years, this old servant still. Get to the point. This prince asks you, if someone were to find a carpenter for no reason, what would they do? And besides the imperial palace, where else would you find such a person? The old eunuch was dumbfounded. This, your highness the crown prince, forgive this old servant's stupidity. This old servant doesn't know why, but that's not called a carpenter. That's called a master of virginity. Besides the imperial palace, there really isn't such a person outside. Basically, all the old eunuchs in the Department of Internal Servants know how to. Hearing this, Li Chengxian's eyes lit up. So you know how to do it too? Chapter 550. Dong! The morning bell slowly sounded in the dark depths of the imperial palace. On the streets of Chang'an, the moment the morning bell sounded, 2 lanterns were lit on the doors of each official's mansion. Fast horses and palanquins were already prepared at the gate of the mansion. They were only waiting for the dazed officials in robes to get on the horses or the palanquins before they rushed to the Vermilion Bird Gate. When everyone entered the Vermilion Bird Bridge, there were basically no people in the market on the bridge. Even if there were people, there were only a few new types of barbecue. Basically, they had eaten until they vomited. However, the smell of barbecue still made the officials with empty stomachs buy a bamboo barrel of beer and a few big chicken legs to eat and drink as they walked. When they reached the gate of the political announcement hall, their stomachs were round. When they entered the political announcement hall, the officials were all shocked by Li Shimin, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Seeing that Li Shimin was in a daze, everyone closed their mouths tightly, lowered their heads, and stood in their positions to wait. Everyone knew that the emperor could be like this. It was all because of the locust disaster. Although the emperor used a strange technique to control the locust disaster was stopped. However, the food was really gone. If it wasn't for the shopkeeper of the small tavern in Tong Huifang. That's right, Zhang Feng. Moreover, this name was like thunder to the ears of all the officials. Not to mention that he personally received the emperor's imperial edict. He was also bestowed the title of Viscount. The school he opened was also of the same level as the Imperial College. What was this? Everyone didn't understand. They couldn't understand the meaning behind it. But they knew that this person was highly regarded by the emperor. After all the officials had arrived, Xiao Gizi said something in Li Shimin's ear and shouted at the top of his voice, "Morning court! Kneel down! Long live the emperor! Give him a seat!" Li Shimin waved his hand. "Today I don't want to hear any memorials about where to ask for grain. What I want to hear is which disaster victims have been treated, which disaster has been solved, or whether the grain from Hunan province has been delivered. As for other matters, I won't discuss them today." Li Shimin decisively interrupted everyone's thoughts. However, even though they said so, it was obvious from the constipated look on their faces that they had already thought of a countermeasure for today's morning court session. However, Li Shimin did not give them the chance. "I've learned that the grain from Hunan province will arrive in Chang, and in half a month. Minister of Agriculture, tell me, can the grain in the Chang and local treasury last for half a month?" "This, Your Majesty, the total population of Chang'an and its surrounding areas, plus the refugees who have flocked here in recent days, is less than 100,000, but it's not far from that. However, There are only 70,000 dawn of grain in the Chang and local treasury. What's more, the price of grain has skyrocketed every day in recent days, which has caused panic among the people in Chang'an. Therefore, I feel that these 70,000 stones can only last for less than 10 days. 10 days. Although Li Shimin knew it, he could not help but feel his heart sink when he heard it again. However, on second thought, if he gave out porridge in the same way as Zhang Feng did, if everyone could control their diet every day, would it last for 15 days? After thinking for a while, Li Shimin could not help but shake his head. It sounded simple, but when he really thought about it, it was absolutely impossible. How much time would it take to gather all the people in the city? Moreover, if he did so, wouldn't it be tantamount to announcing the grain shortage in the world? Therefore, Li Shimin sighed and said, "Because of this, the Empress has reduced all the expenses in the palace to the minimum. Even I eat porridge every day, just to get through the grain shortage as soon as possible. But my strength is too small, so I know that each of you has at least dozens of acres of land, and at most tens of thousands of acres of land." Alas! Li Shimin stopped at the right time. However, how could they not understand the emperor's meaning? "I've already reduced expenses, and I eat porridge every meal. It's up to you. What should they do? They also had a big family to feed. What should they do?" "Your Majesty, this old official is willing to donate 30 dan of grain to help the disaster victims. This old official will donate 50 dan. This old official will donate 150 dan. This old official will donate 300 dan." Starting with Wei Zhang Du Ruhui, Fang Xianling, Chang Yaojin, and the others all spoke one after another. How could they not know the emperor's meaning? Last night they all knew about what happened to Zhang Feng. They expected that the emperor would do something this morning. Who would have thought that they would really guess it right? Seeing that Chang Yaojin and the others had spoken, Xiao Gizi also hurriedly knelt and said, "Your Majesty, this servant's Chamberlain province is willing to donate all the surplus, a total of 320 dan of grain." "Good, good." Li Shimin looked at Xiao Gizi with appreciation. He glanced at the officials. There was no need to say what he meant. Even the eunuch could donate so much. What about you? How could the officials sit still after hearing Xiao Gizi's words? They were so embarrassed that they panicked. Although this old official doesn't have much land and has suffered a disaster, this old official is willing to donate half of the family's grain, a total of 57 dan. This old official will donate 30 dan. This old official. Chapter 551. This was all part of Li Shimin's plan. To be precise, he had long wanted to deal with these people. These guys had so many properties in their families. He did not believe that they only had so little food. Except for Zhang Sun and the others who had taken out some of their family's food, the rest only had a few dozen dawn. Li Shimin was not confused. Before doing this, he had already asked Fang Xianling to carefully check the land situation of each official's family. Therefore, in his heart, these people had long been clear about them. Li Shimin frowned slightly. The officials in the hall who had not spoken yet could not help but feel something. Although my family has 300 mu of fertile land, before the locust plague, the women in my family sold almost everything that could be sold in order to free up space. Therefore, I only have 300 dawn of food left. I am willing to donate 200 dawn to help the people of Chang and tide over this crisis. At this moment, a fifth-grade official in a green court robe said respectfully. This person was Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple. Li Shimin could not help but nod. "Good, you are very good. If everyone was like you, would the Tang dynasty be in trouble?" Minister Zhou could not help but be overjoyed when he heard this. "This is what I should do." Hearing Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple say so, the person who had said a few dozen dawn could not help but blush. He could not help but curse Minister Zhou in his heart. However, after seeing Minister Zhou's situation, the people behind him could not help but feel a fire in their hearts. At this moment, this group of old foxes could not help but feel a fire in their hearts again. This was an excellent opportunity to climb up the ranks. How could they let it go? Someone had tested the water for them. No matter what they did, they could not donate less than this small Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple, could they? To put it bluntly, that little amount of food was nothing to them. If they donated too much and won the emperor's favor, they would be promoted, and then, wouldn't they get everything back? At this thought, all the officials could not sit still. I am willing to donate 170 dawn. I am willing to donate 192 dawn. 200 dawn. I bid 300 sure. When this voice rang out, everyone was in an uproar. Even Li Shimin raised his eyebrows. It was the Minister of Rights, Li Shaogong. When he saw the playful look on Li Shimin's face, he couldn't help but say, "This old minister was wrong. It's 500 stones." Commandery Prince Hujian is indeed a member of the royal family. I am very pleased that you have such courage. Very good, very good. It is the blessing of the Tang dynasty to have you. What's there to worry about? 500 stones. There was no lack of Li clan relatives in the imperial court. At this moment, under the leadership of Li Shaogong, no one could sit still. However, there was no lack of stingy people among them. Even though they had learned from the mistakes of others, they still donated as much as they could. What was this? In times of famine, food was more useful than money. Now, even if you were rich, you might not be able to buy food even if you took out 1,000 strings of coins. No one was stupid. What was this food? It was life-saving money. If they donated it at this time, it would be like throwing the money into the water. How could they pay it back? No one knew how long this famine would last. Food was the foundation of whether a big family could survive or not. Who would be so stupid? Who would donate all their food? To put it bluntly, how long had Li Tang been the emperor? Didn't the previous emperors and dynasties all change in a few years or a dozen years? It was their duty to donate a little. No matter how the imperial court changed, it was still the right way to maintain one's family. This was the idea that everyone had. Li Shimin could also think of it. He could also foresee it. He didn't intend to take much from these officials. At least the food in Chang, and plus Zhang Feng's 20,000 dawn, could be said to have solved this problem. The reason why he asked was that he wanted to see how many people there were. However, after this test, Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Which official in the imperial court didn't he know? Who could escape his eyes? He knew the family background of Zhang Sun Wuji and the others. At the first time of the locust plague in Chang, and Wei Zheng, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Cheng Yaojin, and the others had already taken out a large amount of food to suppress the food price. Li Shimin was clear that they could donate so much this time. This was basically their entire family background. After a lot of things, almost 2,000 dawn of food had been donated at the super meeting. This was enough. At least Li Shimin could see these people clearly. At this time, Li Shimin recorded the names of all the officials who donated food in front of the Minister of Internal Affairs. Li Shimin said, "Today, I don't ask you to donate a lot, but I know that every one of you has difficulties. I don't ask you to donate a lot. I only ask that this disaster is not fought alone. But I learned something yesterday. On the abandoned mountain, someone took out 20,000 dawn of food and prepared to give porridge." Boom! Chapter 552. Li Shimin's words caused an uproar among the courtiers. Who is so stupid? 20,000 sure? Holy shit! Why haven't I met or heard of such an idiot before? 20,000 sure of grain. If only half of it was needed, how much land and things would they be able to exchange for? Seems like, wait a minute. Shaoshan. Why does this name sound so familiar? I remember now. Isn't this the White Deer College? And the one that the emperor gave the decree? Right, I remember now. Is this the college? Why are the people in that college so rich? 20,000 sure. It seems to be the college that the Crown Prince set up. I heard that the Crown Prince wants to set up an innovative college to train himself. As soon as Li Shimin mentioned Mountie, everybody suddenly thought of something. Everyone had heard of this matter before, but it wasn't that they had heard of it. Anyone who had a son in their family was basically unable to escape the fate of being captured by Cheng Chumo and the others with great fanfare. In the end, from the emperor's point of view, this college was simply something that the emperor wanted to give to the crown prince to train himself. In fact, the emperor wanted to give the crown prince an opportunity to cultivate a team of people. There were things like the study of cooks, the study of merchants, and so on. Was this something that a college should do? When everyone heard about Shaoshan, they couldn't help but shake their heads. If the White Deer College in Shaoshan could produce talented people, they would be willing to retire and return to their hometown. What is this? They are just a bunch of stubborn people. What can they do? Furthermore, they even came up with 20,000 sure of grain. What is this? Isn't it because they want the grain in our hands? Who couldn't come up with 20,000 sure of grain now? But what the F***K is this to help the disaster victims? This is an idiot. His head must have been caught in the door. Otherwise, who the F***K would do such a stupid thing? Only a prodigal would do such a thing. Moreover, you haven't seen the Huashang Temple in Chang'an, as well as the other temples around Chang. Now that the calamity has struck, none of them have left their doors. Not even a single temple has opened its doors. Why? They were afraid that those poor people would come and share their rations with them. When it came to food, other than the people in the main hall, who else could compare with them? But what about them? At this time, a minister could not sit still any longer. He bowed and stepped out of the ranks, saying, "Your Majesty, this person is willing to take out 20,000 dawn of grain to save our Chang. This is the blessing of our Tang dynasty. This old subject congratulates your Majesty." When the ministers heard this, they bowed in unison. "We congratulate your Majesty and the Tang dynasty." Li Shimin already knew that this would be the result. However, on one hand, he wanted to promote Zhang Feng of the Xingshan gang. But this seemed to have misunderstood the situation. But it doesn't matter. It would be best if they thought of Li Changqian. This way, Zhang Feng's danger would be greatly reduced. Most importantly, White Deer College's reputation would be completely established. That was enough. Well, today's court is dismissed. You are all trusted officials of the Tang Empire, so I hope that you can also do your best to provide porridge to the victims. Tomorrow, the Chang and local treasury will open the gate of the Chang and local treasury and then suppress the food price to provide relief to the victims. Li Shimin waved his hand and stood up. Little Gizi hurriedly shouted, "Court is dismissed." Seeing this, the ministers also hurriedly stood up and shouted, "Farewell, your Majesty." As soon as he left the political announcement hall, Li Shimin sat down in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. On the one hand, it was cool here. The imperial study was as hot as a steamer. Although it was in the morning and the sun had not yet shone on the earth, the dull smell was still nauseating. On the other hand, Li Shimin was waiting for someone. He was waiting for Zhang Sun and the others. Before Li Shimin finished reading the 3 memorials, Zhang Sun, Wuji, and the others really came. "Your Majesty, what does Brother Zhang Feng want to do? We have been thinking about it all night, but we still can't figure out what Brother Zhang Feng wants to do with a carpenter. Yes, it's chicken, duck, or the saw pig. We can all understand. Although the saw pig is too smelly, it is still edible at this time. But this carpenter, well, don't talk about it. I am also thinking about it. I thought you all knew about it, but I didn't expect. Alas, forget it. Forget it. Zhang Feng has always been like this. It's hard to figure out. But since he said it out loud, you guys should go and help him. Zhang Feng can be considered to have done me a great favor. Now, how many refugees have gathered outside Chang'an City? Your Majesty, for the time being, there are at least 10,000 refugees in Chang'an City. Most of them are from other places in the city. 10,000? So many? Li Shimin's heart sank. But with 10,000 people, 20,000 dawn of grain should be enough, right? But just as Li Shimin was thinking about it, Zhang Sun Wuji reported again. But according to the spies, refugees outside the city are gathering in Chang'an from Luozhou and Qinling. For the time being, we don't know the specific situation, but this old minister guesses that if this group of people comes, Brother Zhang Feng's 20,000 dawn of grain. Chapter 553. In fact, Zhang Sun Wuji was right. However, they were not refugees. They were people who flocked to Chang and to seek education after learning about White Deer College. 3 days had passed. Everyone in Luozhou and the prefectures around Chang and knew that the college was not only free, but also provided them with food. After 3 years, they would have a chance to become an official in the imperial court. Therefore, they rushed to Chang'an like crazy. Among them, there were people who really wanted to seek education. There were also people who wanted to make a living. Most of them wanted to find a way to survive. A plague of locusts meant death. Wherever the dense swarm of locusts passed, there was nothing left to see. Although Zhang Feng's winery in Chang and city temporarily suppressed the plague, other places did not. Everyone could only watch their grain rot in the field when it was about to be harvested. Other places would not be like Chang'an, where there was someone like Zhang Feng. Although there would be some losses, at least they could get some money in their hands. But what was the use? Therefore, after the imperial edict was issued, everyone in Luozhou and the surrounding areas were in an uproar. As long as there were children over 6 years old in their families, they rushed to Chang'an immediately. At this time, on the banks of the Great River and in Qinling Mountain, everyone was enduring even if they were hungry. Even if they were so hungry that they dug worms in the soil to eat, they were still enduring. They would reach Chang'an soon. Once they reached Chang'an, they would have a good life. However, in Jianan City, a few hundred miles away from here, the imperial edict had just reached Xiangzhou. Outside the Xiangzhou provincial governor's mansion, the provincial governor, who had received the news early in the morning, had been waiting here. When he saw the small yellow door, he hurriedly glanced at the imperial edict and was deeply shocked by what he saw. He hurriedly ordered someone to post it on the bulletin board outside the provincial governor's mansion. Then he ordered the yamen runners to carry gongs and roar through the streets. At this time, it was undoubtedly a disaster for the people of Xiangzhou. In the eyes of all the people, there was nothing else that they cared about except eating. With all their strength, they could only support themselves to buy a little rice at the entrance of the treasury or the grain store. They could only support themselves so that they would not be attacked by hunger and fall asleep. However, no one knew when these days would come to an end. Bang! Bang bang! As the gongs sounded, the people numbly raised their heavy eyelids and glanced at the bailiffs. Then they curled up in the shade and dozed off again. Folks, don't sleep anymore. Good news! This is great news. His Majesty knows about our hardships. Now, he has set up a school in Chang and city to teach the poor children how to read and write. At that time, you can even enter the imperial court and become an official. However, the only response they received was this indifferent indifference. However, the bailiffs did not give up. He shouted again at the top of his voice. Fellow villagers, that school doesn't require money. As long as you want to go, not only is it free, as long as you can get in, you will be provided with food. Hearing this, everyone was instantly stunned. Fu Wang, what are you talking about? Is this really free? Why would I lie to you? It's really free. Are you sure? Which school in the world doesn't know that even if you want to find a teacher to teach you how to read and write, you will need to pay 100 strings of money? There are also rules and regulations. How can it be free? And it will provide food? Idiot Wang, you're just trying to make fun of us. Hearing this, the bailiffs became impatient. He pointed at the provincial governor's mansion and said, If you don't believe me, you can go to the provincial governor's mansion and have a look. How can it be fake? Hearing this, all the people were tempted. But at this time, Fu Wang added again, But there are conditions. Not everyone can go. Hearing this, the people who tried hard to get up and go to the provincial governor's mansion to have a look sat down again. Fine. He must be kidding us. How can we, the slaves, study this school? But Fu Wang's next words made the people's hearts burn again. I heard from the provincial governor. He said that the imperial edict clearly states that as long as one is at least 12 years old and under 30 years old, he can go. After this, the whole Xiangzhou went crazy. Everyone knew that if they wanted to be outstanding, what else could they do except study? Of all things, reading was the best. This was a principle that had never changed since ancient times, and everyone understood it. However, not everyone could afford to read books, which was why more than half of the Great Tang's population was illiterate. But now, when everyone heard this, they were shocked and completely dumbfounded. Motherf***Ker. Fu Wang, are you trying to trick me again? Let's go. Let's go and ask the provincial governor. If that bastard Wang dares to fool us, we'll skin him alive. Let's go. On the other side of Xiangzhou, a few youths were squatting by the riverside with their buttocks sticking out to catch fish. When they had just caught a large eel, a skinny youth hurried over. Erwa Sanwa, stop it. Something big has happened. We can go to school in Chang. Chapter 554. When the youths heard this, they did not notice that the eel in their hands had slipped away. They had squatted here for half a day and hit the jackpot to get their hands on it. Basically, this thing was their dinner for the four of them. No, it was their dinner for the whole day. But now it had escaped. If it had been before, they would not have tolerated it. After all, it was food. But now, among them, Erwa, who was holding onto the loach, was a teenager with a slightly fairer complexion. Ignoring the greasy stains left behind by the eel's struggle, he asked, "Red skin, what the hell did you say?" Erwa's surname was Chun, and his name was Chun Jai. His ancestors had said that he was from a rich family that had inherited the Chun dynasty. But because of Emperor Yang of Sui's large-scale attack, his family had also suffered a disaster. The whole family had a few hundred people. In the end, they had fled to Xiangzhou, but there were not many left. They had settled down in Qin family ditch. Although there were not many people left in the family, some of the remaining people were literate. After all, they had once been a rich family. Chun Jai had learned to read from his grandmother for a period of time when he was young, so he could basically read. Although he was now 15 years old and his family knew that he was talented, no one dared to let him go to the academy to study because of what happened to his ancestors. This was all because Chun Jai was too smart. They were afraid that they would follow in their ancestors' footsteps. But for the rebellious Chun Jai, being able to take the college entrance examination and enter the imperial court as an official was the only way for a man, a hot-blooded man, to revitalize the family business and survive in this era of starvation. At this moment, when he heard that he could actually study, he couldn't help but feel excited. However, when he thought of the high cost that was enough to make them look up to him, Chun Jai's eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of loneliness. Then, he continued to catch fish and shrimp to prepare dinner for the family. Erwa, come and take a look. This is the notice I picked up at the city gate. Come and take a look. I heard Li Lauer say that Chang and City specially built a white deer college. Not only can you go to the college for free, but you can also do that. It's a round belly. Free? You can fill your stomach? Chun Jai and the rest could not help but stare with wide eyes. Redskin, are you telling the truth? Hurry up and tell second brother. He's the only one in our village who can read. Let him read. Second brother, take a look. When the skinny monkey with a red face ran in front of them, a charcoal-like young man snatched the notice from his hand and handed it to Chun Jai. Chun Jai looked at the notice in his hands, unwilling to give up on a single word. The few youths beside him also stretched their necks to look at the notice. Although they were illiterate, what was this thing? What was this? Li Lauer's things. If one were to take a look at it, it would be something that could be contaminated with dragon qi. When they returned to the village, it was enough to make them be looked up to in front of others. Moreover, the most important thing was that in the village, other than Erwa's family, no one else was literate. If this was true, then, wouldn't it mean that they could also study at the academy? Why didn't they think of such a glorious thing? Uncontrollably, their eyes became even more heated. At this moment, Chun Jai's heart was blooming. Redskin, let me ask you, is this thing real? How can it be fake? Now the whole of Xiangzhou city has spread this, and basically all the strong youths are preparing to go here. Not for any other reason, but because they can fill their stomachs here. And although I can't learn this book, it's not bad to learn to be a craftsman. In the future, I can work in the official kiln. Yes, we can't read and write, but at least we have some strength. Here, we can at least learn some skills. When the time comes, if we are lucky enough to get into the Ministry of Works, we will be rich. But Chun Jai did not think so. He could not help but look in the direction of Xiangzhou city and mumbled, I just don't know if we can get a salary if we learn well at the academy. After all, what are you thinking? You are lucky enough to get a salary if you don't want a salary? Rednose had a look of disdain when he heard this. In his opinion, the academy, which everyone could only look up to, was already a matter of luck if they did not receive a salary. How could he ask for a salary? Was this guy crazy? Meanwhile, in the Xiangzhou provincial governor's residence, a magnificent war was breaking out. A middle-aged man in a pierced official's uniform was kneeling under the sun. The servants and guards around him acted as if they did not see him and continued doing what they were supposed to do. Even the private advisor was reporting the situation outside to the provincial governor as if it was nothing out of the ordinary. In the room in front of the provincial governor, deafening roars and shouts could be heard from time to time. If you dare to let my precious son go to White Deer College, which is for slaves, do you believe that I will burn down your provincial governor's residence? It's been a day after day. If my son wants to play, I will almost bring down the sky. How many teachers have I invited? Do you think your son is literate? As she spoke, a fat woman who looked like a meatball pointed at a young man who was lying on the bed, hugging a lamb leg in one hand and a jar of wine in the other. He was as fat as the woman. The young man seemed to be replying, "Mother, I want to go to Chang'an. I want to be a high-ranking official." When the woman heard this, her heart melted. Her eyes, which were already squinted, turned into two slits when she smiled. Okay. If my son wants to be an official, I will contact the Imperial College for you. Let's go to the Imperial College. As she spoke, the woman turned around and pointed at the provincial governor and shouted, "Are you deaf? Why aren't you writing a letter of recommendation to recommend my son to the Imperial College?" Only despair was left in the eyes of the provincial governor when he heard this. Okay. Chapter 555. Copies of the Imperial Edict were still being sent out of Chang'an. No, 5 days ago, all the small yellow men had brought the rubbing of the Imperial Edict to the provincial government offices. However, it had been 5 days, and the distant places still had not received the message. However, all the places that had received the Imperial Edict had caused an unprecedented sensation. First, it was that strange academy. What was it trying to do? It was completely different from the academies that everyone knew. Moreover, almost no one had been to this academy before. However, they knew that it was a place to learn things from the sages. The sages hated merchants and agricultural skills the most. In their eyes, this was an insult to the reputation of the academy. However, after seeing the Imperial Edict, they could only suppress the urge to crusade against Zhang Feng. In their opinion, since the emperor had issued the Imperial Edict, and it was not an orthodox academy, they could only turn a blind eye to it. Otherwise, in the past few days, there would have been people going to crusade against Zhang Feng or submit letters of remonstrance to impeach him. Just like Chang'an City at this time. Although the people of Chang'an City were the first to know about this. At this time, the people were still waiting. They were not waiting for anything else. They just felt that the emperor had issued the Imperial Edict. Most of them were waiting to see what would happen. Take the people of Tonghuifang as an example. They wanted to go to Zhang Feng's academy more than anyone else. They wanted to study and learn more than anyone else. Now that Fengzi had established such an academy, it was originally a good thing. However, after that day, everyone felt embarrassed. They felt that if they did so, although Zhang Feng would not say anything, they would feel embarrassed. What was this? They were bullying the familiar. They could not bear this name. Most importantly, in Chang'an City, in addition to these ordinary people, there were also high-ranking officials and nobles. They could not afford to offend them. If they accidentally stepped on them in this academy, what would the effect be? They could not afford to pay for it even if they killed them. Therefore, this was what really made them hesitate. Although this was also the time for their son to escape his fate, compared to their current life, who would be willing to gamble with 3 years? Besides, everyone was starving at this time. They all needed to live by the noses of those rich people. Who would want to provoke them when they had nothing to do? Old he, what's wrong with you? I don't see you working in the winery either. Why are you hiding here? At the riverside of Tonghuifang, although the riverside was no longer smelly, it was still a good place for the commoners to enjoy the cool air. At this moment, Old he was squatting alone under a willow tree by the riverside, drinking wine and thinking about something. At this moment, Zhu Zi's father was dragging a large cart full of empty bamboo tubes. When he saw Old he asked in surprise, "What are you doing?" When Old he saw who it was, a hint of a smile flashed across his turbid eyes. "Sigh, it's all because of my son. He kept pestering me to go to Fengzi's academy. But do you think I can go? Fengzi has done us a favor, but we also know what kind of person our son is. He is not cut out for studying. If we send him there, what if he offends those high-ranking officials and nobles? What will happen then?" Zhu Zi's father could not help but be stunned when he heard this. "I really haven't thought about what you said, but now that you mention it, it is really—" Zhu Zi's father could not help but hit the sweat towel wrapped around his head when he heard this. "Our Zhu Zi is not the same. Let's not talk about Guzi. Steamed Bun is also clamoring to go to Chang and University." When Old he heard this, he could not help but think of his daughter. "I also heard that Zhang Feng's, Miss Jingshu is at Chang and University. I am going to send my daughter to serve Jingshu. I don't want to be rich or noble. I just want to be able to fill my belly. I am worried about this matter. If I ask Fengzi, it is not a problem, but I can't bring myself to do it." Zhu Zi's father's eyes lit up when he heard this. "Now that you mention it, I also remember that my steamed bun is very popular with Fengzi. If she can serve Jingshu when the time comes, it would have been better if the two of them did not mention it." Now that they said it, their hearts were instantly warmed up. Although they could earn a living by working in Fengzi's winery, at this moment, they saw a bright future ahead of them. They did not ask for a meteoric rise, but if they could learn a little bit of Jingshu's skills, they could marry into a rich family and be the first wife. Jingshu's reputation was too great. Moreover, wasn't the crown prince's teacher also in the academy at this time? If they could enter Chang and University, they would have the reputation of Jingshu and the crown prince. For these poor people, it was something that they could only wish for in 8 lifetimes. Just as the two of them were squatting here and fiddling with something, they saw a few women not far away from Tonghui Lane rushing into the lane. The leading woman was Zhu Zi's mother. She was holding a skinny man and a pinball machine in her arms. She ran over here. "Zhu Zi's father, what are you doing here? Hurry to the pub. Something has happened. Something big has happened. Fengzi is crazy. He wants to destroy the 20,000 dawn of grain." Chapter 556. Zhang Feng hadn't returned to Chang'an City for several days. Since the launch of White Deer College on Mount E, he had been on the mountain. Today, he finally made a trip back to Chang'an. But before he could happily cook the meat in the pot, he met Zhu Zi's father, the old scholar, and the others who rushed into the small tavern with cold faces. Looking at their attitude, it was as if Zhang Feng had done something wrong. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. "Everyone, what are you doing?" The old scholar, wearing a Buddhist robe, sat opposite Zhang Feng with a gloomy face. He asked, "Fengzi, I want to ask you something. You must answer me truthfully." It was the first time the old scholar had been so serious. Zhang Feng's heart trembled. Did something terrible happen? He nodded hurriedly. Seeing this, the old scholar asked, "Old man wants to ask you, is it true that you've hoarded 20,000 dawn of grain in Chang and City to help the disaster victims? Well, tell me the truth. Otherwise, when the sky falls, no one will save you." Zhang Feng was shocked when he heard this. Did this matter attract the attention of some people? Or could it be that the impact of this matter was too great? Zhang Feng couldn't figure it out. Finally, he looked at the worried and expectant eyes of the crowd and nodded. "Yes, I've hoarded 20,000 dawn of grain. I'm sure." "Ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous." The old scholar was so angry that he slammed the table and interrupted Zhang Feng. He shouted, "Do you know that if you did this quietly, old man wouldn't have cared and would even give you a thumbs up? But look at what you've done. Now, the whole Chang'an City knows about this matter. Do you know what you've done now? Now, do you know that what you've done has forced those high-ranking officials and dignitaries to take out grain to suppress the grain price? Not only that, all the officials have set up porridge outside their mansions. This is a good thing. Zhang Feng was a little confused. However, this was within his expectations. Once this matter was spread out by Chen Tiniu and the others, it would definitely attract the attention of some people. The best way was to make use of public opinion to get the government to step in and suppress the price of food. At the same time, they could give out porridge and help the victims. This was the best way. Moreover, the best way was to make Shao Mountain's White Deer College famous. And the worst-case scenario would be... There was no worst. After all, he was following orders. Even if Guanlong's people wanted to cause trouble, they would have to consider the weight of the imperial edict. However, the old scholar and the others clearly didn't think so. Feng Zi, you're really stubborn. Do you know why you're doing this? It's like snatching food from the mouths of these officials. In this year of famine, grain is more valuable than gold. Although the price of grain has been suppressed, the shortage is a common phenomenon. No one wants to give away their grain for no reason, especially those rich officials and dignitaries. Needless to say, that's even more so. Do you know that you're making an enemy of all the officials of the Tang dynasty? I heard that yesterday morning, His Majesty made an announcement in court. He said that he wants every official to learn from White Deer Academy. This is what we heard from the eunuchs and servant girls when we were delivering beer at the palace yesterday. I heard that the Chamberlain Department donated 300 don. Now, everyone in the Chamberlain Department has a bowl of noodles and chestnut steamed buns for every meal. Now, the people in the Chamberlain Department are complaining everywhere. You're muddle-headed. Everyone was talking at once, slapping their thighs and berating Zhang Feng for his mistake. However, when Zhang Feng heard this, his furrowed brows relaxed. The old scholar might have heard it from Li Gang. It was fine if the old scholar didn't look at Zhang Feng. Now that he looked at him and saw that Zhang Feng was no longer worried, he couldn't help but slap the table and berate. Look at what you've done. Now, not only Chang'an City, but all the other prefectures are imitating you. Even the emperor has issued an edict. Think about it, how many people have you offended? When the time comes, don't talk about entering the court as an official. I think you'll have to sleep with one eye open. Otherwise, I don't know where this shit came from, but it'll be all over your face. Old scholar, you don't have to worry about this. I know what I'm doing. Zhang Feng cupped his hands in front of his chest and stood up. He said, Dear neighbors, in fact, I'm not giving away the food as you think. I'm giving it away for free. This time, I came down the mountain to tell you in advance that we're all neighbors. To put it bluntly, Feng Zi has always been indebted to all of you. Now that there are benefits, I'll definitely think of you first. Therefore, I've decided to give away the food. Doesn't my White Deer College have 50,000 mu of land? I don't know how long it'll take to get those 200 or 300 people. You also know that Feng Zi is impatient. Therefore, I want to use the method of work in place of labor to give out porridge and food. Work in place of labor? Everyone was dumbfounded. Feng Zi, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by work in place of labor? What do you mean by giving out food? Chapter 557. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even Li Chengqian and Du Go, who had arrived a long time ago but were blocked by the crowd, were dumbfounded. They had always thought that Zhang Feng was a prodigal son. That was 20,000 don of grain. How could he take it out for no reason and give it to the crowd like this? They also knew that Zhang Feng wasn't that kind of rich person. But this kid was stubborn and refused to say it. This made them puzzled, but they also knew that Zhang Feng was doing this to solve this disaster, so they didn't ask. But now, they could not help but stretch their necks and listen. Zhang Feng looked at the old scholar and said, My Shao Mountain is 50,000 mu of barren land. Old scholar, do you know what this means? How much time and how many people will it take to flatten it? That's why I came up with this idea. As long as it's a commoner, even if it's a poor commoner, if they want to buy food, every household has to show a certificate issued by the government. Then, every household can only buy 1 caddy of food a day, and the price is 5 copper coins. I'm not going overboard, right? The old scholar was dumbfounded. All the people in Tonghui Square who were blocking the entrance were in an uproar. What? 5 copper coins? Let's not talk about anything else. Just the grain in Chang, and's treasury costs 6 copper coins. Feng Zi, are you sure you're not joking? Feng Zi, you can't do this. I know you're a good person, but you can't be a good person. If you do this, won't you lose money? No, Lao Tzu can't eat this grain. Even if Lao Tzu starves to death, he won't go back to buy a grain from you. I won't buy it either. Lao Tzu has betrayed his conscience. Some of the women were even crying. Touch your consciences and think about it. Has Feng Zi ever mistreated any of you? If you haven't finished eating, he will give you basins of meat. Not only is he opening a school, but he is also giving out porridge. Why is he doing this? If you have a bit of conscience, can you eat it? Brother Madman, I don't want your pinball machine anymore. My mother told me not to go to the academy. Zhu Zi wiped off the snot on his nose and carefully placed the almost broken pinball machine on the table. Then, he took out some money from his pocket and placed it on the table. This is what Brother Frenzy gave me before, and this is what I won from the pinball machine. I don't want it anymore. The old scholar's eyes were moist. Li Changqian and Du Go's eyes were moist. Even the eyes of all the people in Huitong Square were moist. Zhang Feng took a deep breath and tightly gripped the money on the pillar. He said, "Would you believe me if I told you that not only did I not suffer a loss, but I also made a big profit?" Silence. No one said anything. After all, none of them were fools. They were able to see that. Not making a loss? Who would believe that? Zhang Feng asked the old scholar to sit down. He asked everyone to sit down, but they stubbornly refused. Zhang Feng said leisurely, "Actually, when the locusts appeared, I noticed that something was wrong, so I started to buy food at that time. At that time, because of the locust plague, a barbarian merchant had a large amount of food in his hands, and he was in a hurry to return to the western region, so he couldn't take it with him, so he sold it. You all know about this, right? At the entrance of our market, the one who often sells fur, he was in a hurry. You all know that I'm a soft-hearted person. So I bought the 20,000 don of food at a price 30% lower than the market price." Zhang Feng explained. He almost took out the contract he signed with the beard, as well as the note issued by the government. However, when he said that, everyone calmed down a little. However, Feng Zi, now everyone knows that the price of food is skyrocketing. Don't talk about 5 copper coins, you can sell it for 6 or 7 copper coins, right? Why are you selling it for 5 copper coins? Zhang Feng spread his hands. Although the people in Chang'an City and some people outside the city have sold their food to me, and you all have some money left, you should know that my academy is in Shao Mountain, and I'm facing those people who are eager to see their food rotting in the field. How can they have money? I think they don't even have 5 copper coins. If I had said that I would give them food directly, not to mention you, do you think that I, Zhang Feng, am a fool? Zhang Feng pointed to his head as he spoke. This time, everyone finally felt relieved and laughed out loud. Zhang Feng breathed a deep sigh of relief. Could be said that everything had been dealt with. But uncle, he was not satisfied. Feng Zi, didn't you just say that you would give food and porridge? What are these? You can't stop producing 20,000 don of food. If this matter were to spread, not to mention your 20,000 don of grain, even 100,000 don of grain would be eaten by you within 3 days. Chapter 558. This problem is very easy to solve. Zhang Feng decided to open up as well. Didn't I just say that my academy has 50,000 mu of land? How long will it take to reclaim the land? I can't wait that long. So, if we sell the grain, those who have money will buy it. What about those who don't? Don't worry. I have a lot of work waiting for people to do. Wow! Everyone was shocked. Even the old scholar couldn't help but frown. Fengzi, is this what you mean by work in lieu of work? If that was the case, then it would be easy to handle. There were many stubborn students in Chang'an University. He only heard about it from those guys by chance. Finally, he asked Li Gang and Jing Shu about it, and then hurried over to ask Zhang Feng what was going on. But he didn't expect that after all the fuss, it turned out to be this. At that moment, Li Changqian and Du Go finally squeezed into the little tavern. Only then did they finally ask, Fengzi, could it be that you want these people to work for you, and then you want to convert the food into food for them? Zhang Feng saw the two of them and asked, have you found a carpenter? Not yet. But first, tell me if it's the same as what I said. Li Chengxian's mind was full of ideas. Zhang Feng pointed at the wine cabinet. Li Chengxian was very tactful. He quickly ran over and fetched a few jugs of wine. Without greeting the people at the door, he poured a bowl of wine for the four of them. Only then did he look at Zhang Feng with a strange expression. Li Chengxian is right. This thing is actually something that the academy will pass on to you in the future. Don't ask for it now. I'm not in the mood to tell you. Let's talk about this work in lieu of work. Now, you can see that the people who will come will definitely be those poor people who can't even afford to eat. But our Shao Mountain only has so much food, and we definitely can't stop the production. So I thought of a way, and that is to use labor to replace labor. Everyone will work in Shao Mountain according to the market price. Every night, someone will come to settle your daily wages. After that, you can get food. However, you can only exchange for food once every 5 days. As for the rest of the time, most of the time you work for me, and I'll take care of your meals. This is called using labor to replace labor. That's not right. Fengzi, if you put it this way, this isn't how we should settle the score, right? Dugo frowned and said, you see, with the current market price, a person can only earn 2 coins in a day. Under normal circumstances, they can only earn 1 coin. But if you exchange for food every 5 days, then wouldn't that be? Zhang Feng glared at him. You're the best. Are you stupid? This person works for me and his meals are provided. What does he need food for? Isn't it for his family to eat? So I give them food every 5 days, 1 catty each time. This is calculated according to their accounts. This way, won't everyone be able to survive 5 days? But remember, 1 household in a straight line. For example, if you have 5 people in your account and all 5 of you come to work, then you'll only be given 1 catty of food. Don't ask why. Logically speaking, this catty of food shouldn't be given, but Fengzi's conscience can't bear it. So I'll also give you 1 catty of food. Of course, you can also choose to ask for money. If it's 5 days, each person will be given 5 coins. 5 people together, that's 25 coins. Zhang Feng was not stupid. He had already calculated all these things clearly. This was also to make the best use of the least amount of food. After all, he only had 20,000 dong. This thing would be used up easily. Then I understand. Li Chengxian slapped his thigh and pointed at Zhu Zi. His sister said excitedly, now that you've said it, I understand. He's also a labor? At this moment, even the old scholar couldn't help but frown. If steamed buns were considered labor, then wouldn't it be a huge loss? What could she do if she went? Serve tea and water? Zhang Feng looked at Li Chengxian as if he was looking at an idiot. If this food was yours, steamed buns would want it. Even that bedridden old man would dare to take it. Tell me, what are they going to do? They're going to open up a wasteland, to build an academy. Zhang Feng said speechlessly. But when he saw that everyone's expression was a little strange, he couldn't help but add, well, that doesn't mean they can't go. They'll definitely go. It's just that they'll be given 2 bowls of porridge every day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. They don't have to work. When everyone heard this, they finally understood the procedure of work in lieu of labor in their minds. So this was what work in lieu of labor was all about? Was this also something that Zhang Feng would teach in the academy in the future? Zhu Zi's father and old, he couldn't help but change the way they looked at Zhu Zi. If this was true, then didn't it mean that Zhu Zi could really go to the academy? But this still wouldn't do. Zhang Feng swept his gaze across the crowd, before his gaze finally landed on Dugo, who had been drinking all this while, grabbing some jerky from the wine cabinet and gobbling it down. He said, from now on, the daily distribution of food and porridge, as well as the statistics of everyone's work, will be left to you. Chapter 559. What did you say? Dugo was dumbfounded. This time he was stunned. Ever since he entered the door, he only said 1 sentence. Then, when he smelled the fragrance of the wine, His gluttony was already aroused. How could he care about anything else? Did this kid think that he ate too much? Drank too much? That's not right. He didn't look like that after drinking so much wine. This, Feng Zi, you're wrong. There are so many people. You can't let me go. No, this won't do. There are so many people. Dugo was anxious. Li Chengqian crossed his arms and looked at Dugo as if he was watching a joke. Dugo was so angry that he directly grabbed Li Chengqian and said, Feng Zi can go. I definitely can't do it alone. What are you doing? What are you doing? Feng Zi gave you this task. It's not easy. Look at Tang and the other two. They're still moving stones. You just need to sit there and everything will be solved. Aren't you satisfied? Li Chengqian said while giving Dugo a warning look. But when he thought of so many people, how could Dugo care about Li Chengqian's hint? No, this is definitely not right. Think about it. Lao Tzu is facing thousands of people. Do you want to tire me to death? Feng Zi, can we? Zhang Feng smiled slightly. No, if you don't want to go, then I'll let go Zi, Zhu Zi, and Old Gua and Zhu Zi's father go. After Zhang Feng said that, the eyes of the people who were about to leave lit up. Zhu Zi and the others were stunned. They didn't do anything. How could they do this job if it was given to them? No, there was a problem here. It wasn't only Go Zi and the others who thought of this. Even Dugo understood at this moment. Everyone present thought of this. Dugo couldn't help but ask carefully, Feng Zi, do you plan to? No plan. If you don't want to go, then go home and stay. Okay, I just happened to. Hearing this, Dugo was instantly overjoyed. It had been a long time since he had returned home. This time, he planned to find someone to bring back all the rare books and paintings that he had collected up the mountain. This way, when he had nothing to do, he would be able to read them. But just as he was about to turn and leave, the old scholar and the others couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. This silly kid's IQ was worrying. All right, let's all disperse. Think about it. Since Feng Zi has said so, you guys can rest assured. When you go to buy food, don't make a fuss. Just let the people in Tong Hui Fong know. The old elementary scholar waved his hand and prepared to leave. But at this time, Zhang Feng called out to everyone. Wait, I haven't explained everything yet. No, Feng Zi. Brother Feng, what do you mean by asking me to go home? Zhang Feng glanced at Dugo and said, Nothing. Didn't you say you were tired? It's tiring for me to do anything here. If you want to be idle, then go back. Hearing this, how could Dugo not understand that Feng Zi wanted him to leave? He couldn't help but feel anxious. Feng Zi, Brother Feng, don't be like this. I'll go. I'm not forcing you. If you want to go, then go. If you don't want to go, I won't force you. I'll go. Dugo was about to cry. At this time, Zhang Feng smiled and patted his shoulder. Don't feel wronged. Do you know why I asked you to do this? Why? Whether it was Dugo or Li Chengqian, they couldn't help but widen their eyes. Zhang Feng then mysteriously said, Do you still remember what I said about arithmetic? This time, it will be a test of your ability to use division and multiplication in real life. When the time comes, you will have to learn it. Moreover, if you can perfectly handle this matter for me, then I will give you an extra 10 points. Really? Hearing this, Dugo's eyes burned with passion as he looked at Zhang Feng. He already knew about the credits when he was in Chang'an University. The assessment was held every half a year. The full score of 10 points would be accumulated at the end of a year. If the total score of 3 years was less than 50 points, then congratulations, you would have to stay in jail for a year. However, Zhang Feng didn't mention when he would add these 10 points. If it was accumulated until graduation, Li Chengqian couldn't help but feel regret. He wanted to slap himself in the face. F***CK. Why didn't I think of that? How could I let him take advantage of such a good thing? However, you won't be able to handle it alone. How about this? I will give you a task. Zhang Feng pointed at Guzi, Zhu Zi's father, and old He. You have seen how close I am with these 4 people. This is an old neighborhood. Guzi and Zhu Zi are brothers like us. Before this disaster is over, Teach old he and Juzi's father what you learned about arithmetic and simple reading. I won't force you to learn as much as you can. How about it? Dugo heard this. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. How about it? Mother f asterisk cur. You ask me how I am? F asterisk ck. Chapter 560. It was a tragedy for Dugo. Li Chengqian did not escape either. Zhang Feng saw that Li Chengqian was laughing so hard that his shoulders were trembling. He grinned and said, "You're very happy, aren't you?" Li Chengqian was enraged. No, no, no. I just feel that Feng Zi's decision is so brilliant. I'm just envious of you. Is that so? Li Chengqian could clearly feel that Zhang Feng was up to no good. He could not help but be enraged. Well, I still have something to do. I'll leave first. After saying that, Li Chengqian wanted to slip away but was caught by Dugo. Why are you running? F asterisk CKU. Li Chengqian was anxious. By then, everything would be over. Everything would be too late. Zhang Feng cupped his fists and said, "Everyone, there's nothing to do here for now. If there's anything, I'll get old he and the others to let you know. After all, we're all neighbors. If I have something good to do here, I won't forget you, right? If you want to go to Shao Mountain, just let old he and the others know and go to White Deer College tomorrow morning." Okay, then we'll leave. Everyone knew that they had something important to talk about. It was something that they could not touch. Moreover, the two stubbornly stayed there. They felt scared and wanted to run. If Zhang Feng had not stopped old he and the others. However, old he, Zhuzi's father, and even Zhuzi and Gozi felt as if their feet were floating the moment they left the tavern. Although they could do it in the winery, how could it be better than their current job? Who did not want to do something that only required them to move their mouths and learn some skills? Furthermore, he was working under the most terrifying demon king. Although it might be a little inappropriate to work for him, Feng Zi was indeed someone from Tong Huifang. He had thought of the problem from the start and had directly put shackles on that guy. Now they were relieved. Most importantly, not only could they work, but they could also learn things. That was the most important thing. They were old. They did not want to learn anything, but they wanted their children to learn some skills. That was the most important thing. Old he, congratulations. Tomorrow on Shao Mountain, you have to take care of us. Zhuzi's father, your Zhuzi seems to be 15 years old this year, right? TSK, TSK, TSK. What a talent. Is there a marriage partner? My cousin's daughter is 12 this year. As the noises faded away, the old scholar sighed. Feng Zi, I won't say anything more. You understand everything, but... Come, elementary scholar, wait a moment. I have something to tell you. Zhang Feng interrupted the old scholar. Looking at Li Chengqian and Dugo, who were locked in a struggle and staring at each other, he said, "Enough, enough. Isn't it just a small matter? Let me tell you, none of the 5 of you can run away from this. This is a test for you. If you can't even endure this bit of hardship, how can you bring honor to your family? How can I become a jinshi in 3 years? Li Chengqian, don't be so wishy-washy like a woman. If only you had half of your father's courage." Li Chengqian was mercilessly despised by Zhang Feng. In an instant, his head wilted. As if he was going to the execution ground, he said, "Feng Zi, just say it. Do you want me to carry feces or something else? I'll do it." The thing that the few of them couldn't stand the most was for someone to say that they were not as good as their Lao Tzu. If it were someone else, the scalpel would have been placed on that person's head. Seeing Li Chengqian's heroic expression, Zhang Feng was speechless. But he still said, "Well, I won't ask you to do anything outrageous, nor will I ask you to pick up feces. Since this matter has been spread out, there will be a lot of people in Chong, and coming to Shao Mountain tomorrow, maybe tonight. My request is that you have to give me a place to build a house for them. Who are they? What's the situation? What's the situation? And what's the plan? Why? You still want a house? And you have to investigate all the information of these people?" Li Chengqian was dumbfounded. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "Feng Zi, I seriously suspect that you are targeting me. Otherwise, this thing I'm targeting you?" Zhang Feng smiled. He pointed to the door. Li Changqian immediately exploded. "Okay, I'll go. I'll go. Okay." Li Changqian immediately wilted. He lowered his head and kicked Du Go in the butt. The two of them walked away cursing. Until the two of them left. The old scholar took a deep look at the two of them. With his ability, it would be fine if he didn't see anything before. But since Li Gang came to Chang'an University and had been with Li Qian and the others for so long, he was really a fool if he didn't see anything. This was also the reason why he didn't go to Zhangfeng during this period, especially when he knew about the imperial edict. He didn't want to see Li Shimin. He knew that Zhangfeng didn't know Li Shimin's identity, so he deliberately avoided the opportunity to meet Li Shimin. He didn't believe that Li Shimin didn't know him, but it was also because of this. The old elementary scholar was getting more and more confused. Did Zhangfeng really not know Li Shimin's identity after everything he had done? Did he not think about it at all? Especially this time in the academy. It was like opening a window for the old scholar. He really couldn't understand how a dignified emperor, a dignified crown prince, could, and how could it be like this? Chapter 561. The grass used to smoke locusts was popularized in the Tang dynasty to suppress the plague of locusts. There was also the angry white salt. This thing seemed to have come from the tavern as well. It became the official salt. Finally, the cooperative. The old scholar couldn't understand what Zhang Feng was trying to do. "Feng Zi, sometimes I really don't understand you. You're a businessman. Logically speaking, the business knowledge you have is enough to make you rich. You might even be able to enter the imperial court. However, you set up Chang'an University and started idling around. Now, you're setting up this White Deer College. To be honest, I really don't understand what you're thinking. Don't tell me you're going to idle around and be a shopkeeper again after setting up this White Deer College? However, this doesn't make sense. Look at you now. You have 20,000 dawn of grain. You..." As the old elementary scholar spoke, he couldn't help but feel bitter and hateful. Zhang Feng smiled faintly. He stood up and closed the door of the tavern. Then, without caring about his image, he sat opposite the old scholar and said, "Old scholar, I know what you're thinking. I admit that the reason I asked Lao Li to cooperate with me and was lazy was because I was afraid of death." Sigh. The old elementary scholar sighed deeply. What happened after that? Aren't you being too ostentatious these days? And what were you thinking before? Zhang Feng drank a bowl of wine and said, "Thinking? I didn't think much. What I did before was just a small matter. Compared to everything I did before, this is just a small matter." As Zhang Feng spoke, he pointed at his head and then at his fingernails. The old scholar pursed his lips. This guy was probably bragging again. "Ahem, that's enough. Don't brag in front of me. Let's not talk about other things. Tell me, why did you arrange for these two guys to do this?" "Let them do that." Zhang Feng looked at the door and smiled. "I thought it was something big, so that's what you're asking." This is actually very easy to understand. Just as Old Man Kong said before, in fact, everything comes from life and life comes from everything. Although Old Man Kong was born in a prestigious family, if he was not born with a chronic defect in his looks, and if he was not often looked down upon, how could he have the will to embark on an official career? Without Tan Zi, how could he open the academy? If he was summoned by Qi Jinggong and Yan Ying, he was afraid that Old Man Kong. All right. Let's not talk about the matters of the saints here. If anyone hears us, our heads will roll tomorrow morning. Just tell me what you want to do. Seeing that Zhang Feng was getting more and more excited, the old scholar couldn't help but interrupt him. Zhang Feng originally had the idea of showing off, but now that the old scholar had mercilessly killed it, he couldn't help but feel a little depressed. "Well, actually, you also know that these two fellows' attainments in mathematics are basically at a higher level. What they can learn from books can only be considered to be very little. But what if we let them use it in their daily lives?" As far as De Bing is concerned, although this fellow is very talkative, his attainments in mathematics are, to be honest, not even Lao Tzu can compare. I'm also afraid that if this fellow continues to pester me, I reckon that my foundation will be ruined by him, so I thought of this thing. The old scholar finally understood. The taste of fish is derived from fishing. Wasn't this what was mentioned in Old Man Long's book? However, when the old scholar thought about it, he really could think of some things. For example, if he were to count the number of people and calculate the amount of food each person had, all of these had to be recorded, and ordinary people might not be able to do it. Especially when at least tens of thousands of people would gather on Shao Mountain tomorrow. What kind of concept was that? Even if there were a few hundred people, it wouldn't be enough. If there was a shrewd person among them, like Zhonghan Xian, then it would be a different story. It would be like leading a sheep. The status of Du Go and the others was naturally a kind of deterrence. At this time, as long as they followed the calculations and found 3 to 5 people, then wouldn't everything be in order? However, this was a test of computing ability and super brain power. But for a freak like Du Go, it was a test. The old scholar still felt that he was up to the task. After all, there was a reason why Du Go was the head of the 4 great demons in Chang'an City. It wasn't that he was violent. It was this son of a B***tch who would follow behind you and reason with you, and talk about the ways of Confucius and Mencius. The old scholar once heard that this person forced a person to hang himself in Yen Lai restaurant. How frightening was this? But it also showed that this person's attainments in the field of calligraphy. The old scholar couldn't help but nod. Then why did you let Li Gan do that? Isn't that because this first young master is good at this Tao? Although De Bing and Tai Nyo have their own strengths, I'm not a fool. Everyone can see the respect they have for Lao Li and Lao Li. Moreover, at home, Lao Li and his son are the bosses of their businesses. What if I send De Bing now? Or someone else? Do you think it's suitable? Moreover, this son of a B***tch dabbles in all kinds of things. I don't know what he's good at. Sending him to do this is actually to make things difficult for him. Chapter 562. It turned out that he was testing Li Chengxian's limits. The old scholar felt a little dizzy. This guy was really... If he knew who they were, would he still be able to laugh? The old scholar was amused at the thought of it. How could the crown prince deal with a bunch of bumpkins? Who would believe that? But the old scholar did not intend to expose him. At this moment, Zhang Feng simply mentioned Cheng Chumo and the others. Chen Tiniu and the other 2 were born with extraordinary strength. Their slap could have killed someone. That's why I asked them to be in charge of carrying the bricks. In fact, I wanted to remind them not to forget their strength. The old scholar frowned when he heard that. I heard that you wanted them to join the army? Also, I want to ask you something. Tell me honestly. I heard that you wanted Chen Tiniu to be a heavy cavalryman? An idiot way, what kind of sharpshooter and assassin is he? You want that worm to be a light cavalryman? Learn from Zhao Zilong? Zhang Feng could not help but be surprised. Oh, you're not simple. How did you know about this? The old scholar rolled his eyes. How could he not know? When he was in Chang'an University, these guys almost went out on the street and talked about it. As long as he was not deaf, how could he not hear it? But Feng Zi, you have to take it easy no matter what you do. Did their fathers agree to this? If you don't agree, what I mean is, don't do this for the time being. Your academy is running well. Just let them study and learn from you. Why do you still want to do this? The old Shotsai knew who their fathers were. He did not know before. But after seeing these guys and Li Shimin, he knew everything. That was why he was so worried. They were born as generals. This was especially true for the High Dukes, who had countless eyes staring at them from behind. If there was even the slightest problem, then the entire clan would be in danger of being wiped out. Moreover, there was a law that stated that other than those currently holding positions in the imperial court, no other talented generals were allowed to appear in the family of generals. At this time, although the old scholar didn't know Zhang Feng's military ability, since Zhang Feng was so confident, it meant that he must have some ability in this area. Otherwise, would he dare to brag about this? He was not a boastful person. This was what the old scholar was most worried about. Especially without Li Shimin's approval. His actions were no different from a rebellion. However, Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. This smile made the old elementary scholar understand many things. He was finally enlightened. Without Li Laoer's consent and tacit approval, would the crown prince be fooling around outside? Without Li Shimin's permission, would Zhangsun Wuji, Wei Zheng, And the others dare to let their sons play like this? Wouldn't that make him a fool? Furthermore, Li Gang had already resigned. What did it mean for him to come here right after he resigned? Finally, all the mysteries in the old scholar's heart were solved. However, he was even more confused about what Zhang Feng was going to do in the future. He couldn't help but sigh, get up dizzily, and prepare to leave. Old scholar, don't go yet. I have something to tell you. The smile on Zhang Feng's face vanished as he pressed the old elementary scholar down on the stool and said, I want you to organize a set of teaching materials that I have great use for. Come to White Deer Institute 3 months later. The old scholar couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. What's wrong with you today? Why do I feel that the fearless you can be so serious? I've been living in Chang and University quite well. Although the students here are naughty and mischievous, they are all under the control of Li Gan and the others. Why do you want to go to Shao Mountain? Zhang Feng shook his head. Chang and University is just a small place. That academy was actually set up by Lao Li. However, when I saw the disaster victims wailing in the sky, I couldn't help but feel a little emotional. What are books for? They are for the benefit of the people. Now, in the entire Tang dynasty, these books are basically only for the rich. If you want a country to be strong, you have to make the people strong. Everyone has a deep-rooted thought, and that is, of all things, only books are of the highest quality. But which books can those who want to get rid of slavery afford to read? So, when I opened the winery, I sat by the roadside and pondered for an entire afternoon. Only then did I understand that the Chang and University will continue to exist, but it will only be for those who only want to study to the point of death. As for the White Deer Institute, that is where I will truly nurture geniuses. Old elementary scholar, how about it? Do you want to join me in nurturing geniuses? This will make your reputation. Hee hee. Forget it. Forget it. The old scholar waved his hand. Although he really wanted to, he also knew what this place meant in the future. Once he attracted the attention of others, if they dug up old scores, he would be dead meat. Although Li Shimin had turned a blind eye to it, the old scholar felt that this was all because of Zhang Feng. This guy even dared to kill his own brother. What wouldn't he do? What did it mean to be able to make White Deer College bigger than the Imperial College? It meant Li Shimin's ambition. He didn't want to be in Li Shimin's line of sight. If he was seen by someone with ulterior motives, then Zhang Feng would be in danger. Fengzi, I know that you have good intentions, but I still want to live for a few more years. Otherwise, do you think I will be able to take the provocation when you come up with something? I don't want to be scared to death by you. Seeing that the old scholar didn't agree, Zhang Feng became gloomy. The old scholar didn't say anything. He just patted him on the shoulder. An eagle needs to climb high and see far. An old man should stay where he needs to be. Now I feel that Chang and Academy needs me, and I can't accept your new toys. Of course, other than food and wine, if you really care about me, then use your monthly salary to exchange for some wine. Let's compete and see which of us will become the grand scholar in the imperial examinations in 3 years. Chapter 563. The next morning, before dawn, Zhang Feng, Li Chengqian, and the other 2 hired 3 palanquins and rushed to Shao Mountain. It was because Li Chengqian had received a message from the Jinwu Guard in the middle of the night, saying that the commoners who had been guarding the city gates had begun to move toward Shao Mountain on a large scale. Li Chengqian could not sit still when he heard this news. He hurriedly shook Zhang Feng awake. Although he had been beaten up by Zhang Feng and their clothes had been torn, Zhang Feng slapped his thigh and decided to return to Shao Mountain early in the morning. At this time, Wei Shuyu and the other 2 on Shao Mountain were already furious. They had not brought a single servant with them this time. At this time, besides them, there were only a few hundred craftsmen left at the construction site. But in the middle of the night, when everyone was comfortably lying in bed and drinking beer after a tiring day, the barking of dogs in the middle of the night forced them to get out of bed. But not long after midnight, the guards at the construction site's gate let out a mournful cry, causing everyone's souls to leave their bodies. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Someone come! Enemy attack! There are tens of thousands of people. Chang Chumo and the others were naturally sensitive in this aspect, causing the 3 of them to immediately explode. Enemy attack? Where did the enemy attack come from? Why had they not heard of it? But the three of them still hurriedly got out of bed. There was nothing to do here, so they could only rush to the battlefield. But when they arrived at the construction site's gate, the craftsmen, especially Gan Ziyuan's group, had already arrived. Looking at the numerous torches below, as well as the scattered lanterns, they basically lit up the entire Pyrolite mountain. The academy's construction site was at the top of the mountain, and the path up the mountain had only been temporarily dug out. But now, looking at the people all over the mountain, even Chang Chumo could not help but feel his scalp go numb. Could it be that the Turks have come? F***CK. What? The Turks? Didn't they say that they were busy with internal strife? It would have been better if he hadn't heard it. After hearing it, Chang Chumo also exploded. Stop F***king arguing. It's so annoying. You quickly call a few nimble people to quickly go down the mountain to call for reinforcements. And the rest of you, pick up your weapons and prepare the fortifications. F***CK. Do any of you have a knife? Or a crossbow? No one answered. However, Chang Chumo and the other two didn't have much hope. They were doing fine here, so who the hell would bring those things? I was too careless. Mother f***ker. If only Lao Tzu had brought some people to surround this place. Now things had gone too far. Chang Chumo and the others cursed in their hearts, but they still hurriedly arranged their defenses. This place was too far away from Chang and city. Even if it was nighttime, it would be impossible to attract Chang and city's attention by burning the mountain. By the time Chang and city's garrison arrived, it would be too late. Sigh, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have let those soldiers go back. F***CK. Wei Shuyu fiercely punched the Ho's head and said fiercely, "Let's stop talking and get ready to fight." Fortunately, Fengzi and the other two are not here, otherwise we would all die here today. Chang Chumo held a torch and lit up the sentry platform. He shouted, "Brothers, it's time to fight for our lives. Fengzi, you have to have a F***king conscience. If you don't F***king send me wine and meat during festivals, Lao Tzu won't let you go even if he becomes a ghost. Charge." While speaking, Chang Chumo suddenly roared. But at this moment, there were also faint cries of panic coming from the foot of the mountain. "Don't shoot. We are the people of Chang and city. Lords on the mountain. We are the people of Chang and city. We are the people of the Tang dynasty. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. We are the people of the 10-mile slope outside Chang and city." As the voices rang out one after another, Chang Chumo was dumbfounded. Everyone on Shao Mountain was dumbfounded. Iron Bull, what's going on? Did we hear it wrong? Or is this a trick of the Turks? No, Iron Bull, don't rush. Calm down. We are the people. Chang Chumo was completely dumbfounded. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Isn't this a trick of the Turks? But what the F***ck is going on? Chang Chumo was dumbfounded. But he also knew that even if it was the Turks, hundreds of them were no match for them. But it was impossible for the Turks to speak fluent Guanzhong language. Chang Chumo had no choice but to gather his courage. He held a torch and rushed down the mountain with Wei Shuyu and Zhang Sun. They wanted to see whether this was a trick of the Turks or they were really the people. But when their torches came close to the face of the fastest runner, even Wei Shuyu couldn't help but spit out vulgarities. F***ck. Isn't this the F***king guy from the west of the city? What the F***ck are you doing here in the middle of the night? Are you summoning spirits? However, when the person he recognized saw that it was Wei Shuyu, a smile appeared on his dark face. I was wondering who it was. So it's young Master Wei. Why are you here? Are you also here to buy food? Chapter 564. That man. Wei Shuyu knew him. He used to drink fermented glutinous rice at his stall when he used the alias of young Master Wei. But at this moment, Wei Shuyu and the others finally put down the hoes and stones in their hands. He couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" Wei Shuyu, Chang Chumo and Zhang Sun knew this man. Most importantly, this guy's fermented glutinous rice was famous in Chang'an. Alas! Young masters, you don't know. Ever since the locust plague, not only have we not been able to do our business, we haven't even been able to get enough money for food. Now, we can only have porridge for our meals every day. Chang Chumo looked at the densely packed heads in front of him and felt his scalp go numb. Are these the people of Chang'an? I'm from Shirley Slope. I'm from Lotus Pond. We're all from Lantian County, located at the bank of the Wei River. We've been in Chang'an for 3 days, but we haven't even been able to enter the city. Today, we heard that the White Deer Institute on Shao Mountain was giving out porridge and selling food. The locust plague in Chang'an. They all knew about it, but they had been carrying stones here these days and didn't have time to go to Chang'an City. But looking at the torches, they couldn't help but feel scared. So many people, with 20,000 dawn of food here, what should they do? Damn Fengzi, why did he run away with Li Chengqian and the others at this time? This Chongzi, why don't we arrange for them to go in first? Ask them to cook. Otherwise, if they all stay here and attract the city defense army, we'll lose more than 10 dawn of food. Wei Shuyu pulled Zhang Sunchong, Chang Chumo and the other two to a corner to discuss. Regarding this thing, they had a headache. If it was a robbery, they would not be afraid. They would just take turns to beat it. But how could they beat it? They couldn't fight. They were in a dilemma. No, we have to ask someone to invite Fengzi. Otherwise, no one can get involved. We're not good enough. In the end, Chang Chumo could only speak the truth after holding it in for a long time. Zhang Sunchong looked at the gate of the mountain and then looked at the others. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, you keep an eye on Chu Mo here. Shuyu and I will ride fast to Chang'an. On the one hand, we will call Fengzi and the others. On the other hand, we will go to the palace. Okay, you two don't run away. Otherwise, when I see you, I'll smash your heads." While they were talking, Wei Shuyu and Zhang Sun borrowed 2 horses from Ganzuan and rode down the mountain. Ganzuan was also dumbfounded. He looked at the person at the door and then at Chang Chumo. But in response to him was a roar. "Chang, what are you looking at? Why don't you King arrange for these people to come in and cook? You're still waiting for me to do all this work." Hey, okay. Ganzuan knew his place. Now that Master Chang had spoken, he didn't dare to act rashly. If he said he would beat someone up, he would beat them to death. Moreover, how could he not know Chang Chumo's true identity? He hurriedly ran over and ordered the people at the foot of the mountain to enter the construction site in an orderly manner. White Deer College was currently filled with wood and stone. Not far away, there was even a lime kiln that was still burning. The torches were still burning. Who would dare to do that? Although Ganzuan didn't know what was in Chang Chumo's house, he understood from the fact that Chang Chumo and the other 2 were guarding it personally, and from what those people had said. Those were all life-saving food. Although these people's lives were none of his business, this was the time to show his face. He would have to rely on these people to make a living in Chang'an City in the future. You, hurry up and get your wife and the others to cook. Hey, old son, don't King go near that house in the dark. Do you know what's in that house? Let me say this first. You can go anywhere except this house. No one is allowed to come within 10 feet of it. If anyone dares to come close, you won't even know how you died. Do you understand? And the rest of you don't just stand there. Lao Tzu knows that you used to work as chefs in Chang'an City. Get over here and cook. Chang Chumo looked at the messy construction site and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. F***CK. Feng. What the F***CK are you doing? F***CK. On the other side, Wei Shuyu and Shangsuan Chong threw the Crown Prince's token they won from Li Chengqian at the wall of Chang'an City. The guards who were on guard were so scared that they didn't dare to act rashly. They hurriedly opened the gate. However, when the 2 rushed into Chang'an City on mules, the guards were dumbfounded. What's going on? What's wrong with these 2 devil kings? Riding mules? Entering the city in the middle of the night with the Crown Prince's token? Chapter 565. When the sun had just risen, Zhang Feng and the other 2's palanquins had just arrived at White Deer College on Shao Mountain. Last night, after Zhang Sun and Wei Shuyu informed Zhang Feng and the other 2, as well as Li Shimin. Li Shimin immediately mobilized 300 imperial guards from the palace to disguise themselves as guards. They brought the 3,000 stones of bone-strengthening powder that Zhang Feng had asked him to leave behind and went up Shao Mountain in the middle of the night. When Zhang Feng and the other two arrived at White Deer College, the starving people had finally been appeased. However, when they saw that there were still people arriving one after another, even though Zhang Feng had already predicted this, he couldn't help but be shocked. Feng Zi, sir, you're finally here. When Cheng Chumo saw Zhang Feng, he finally couldn't help but hug Zhang Feng. Feng Zi, you don't know. Do you know how I spent the night? Damn it. I didn't sleep the entire night. Zhang Feng rubbed his chin and didn't say anything. Instead, he slowly sized up these people. He was pondering how to arrange these people. Iron Bull. How many people are here right now? How would I know? Hey Gon. Where the F***ck did you go? How would Cheng Chumo know this? He hurriedly shouted at the top of his lungs. Gon Zuan, who was in the middle of busying himself, heard Cheng Chumo's roar and his whole body trembled. He hurriedly ran to the mountain gate. Greetings, Prince Zhang, young Master Li. Tell me, how many people are here? Zhang Feng pointed at the people who were laying straw mats on the construction site. Some of them were even wrapped in clothes and sleeping in the mud. At this moment, when the commoners saw that the person in charge had arrived, they all stood up and looked at Zhang Feng with pleading eyes. Replying to young Master Zhang, a total of about 3,000 people came to Lord Zhang's place last night after midnight, and another 1,000 people came one after another until now this morning. Zhang Feng nodded. He snapped his fingers. Hey Dabing, I'll leave these people to you. Old Gon, do a good job. When the time comes, you'll be rewarded. Enough! Hearing this, Gon Zuan hurriedly kowtowed. Li Chengqian couldn't help but pull Zhang Feng and ask, These people? Do you plan to? Who are these people? These people were the foundation of the Tang dynasty, but what about now? How could Li Chengqian not be worried when these people were starving? Zhang Feng patted Li Chengqian's shoulder and said, I know what you're worried about, but you have to know that I only have 20,000 dawn of grain here. All I can do is do my best. I'm just a commoner. Do you really think I'm a god? But Li Chengqian was anxious. So many people. This? Perhaps he didn't understand the disaster victims before, but along the way, when he saw the leaves and bark being boiled in the pot, Li Chengqian couldn't stand it anymore. In his life, he spent most of his time in the palace, or secretly went to the brothel with Zhang Sunchong and the others, or went to Yen Lai Lu to taste poetry. How could he know that the suffering of the world would be like this? At this moment, Du Go and the others couldn't help but have their eyes turn red. Zhang Feng patted their shoulders and sighed. Then he walked alone to the only wooden building. As soon as he left, the commoners couldn't help but follow closely. When they touched the earthen pots in their hands, they made a clanking sound. Zhang Feng couldn't help but stop. Looking at those people who were looking at him with eager eyes, Zhang Feng fell silent. He was not a good person. He was not a bad person. He just wanted to live a good life. Previously, he had told Old Li everything he could say and everything he could. He wanted to pass it on to the current dynasty through him. However, because of the pedantry of this era, the distrust of the nobles, and the exploitation of the rich and powerful families, in the end, although to a large extent Zhang Feng had suppressed the plague of locusts and even produced beer, he had not been able to do much. To the greatest extent, they could make use of the moldy and rotten wheat in the field. But, after all, the strength of one person couldn't fight against this era. Zhang Feng had no choice but to stay. He looked at the crowd and said, Everyone, I know what you're thinking. You just want to fill your stomachs and live. I'll be frank. I only have 20,000 dan of grain here. I'm sure you all know this. Therefore, what I said before, I'll keep it. As long as you can bear the burden, even if you can walk or read, I'll find a way for you to live. However, this isn't a charity hall. You've seen Shao Mountain, right? If you want to live, do as I said before. I, Zhang Feng, mean what I say. After saying this, Zhang Feng resolutely walked into the wooden house. However, the moment he turned around, all the commoners uniformly knelt on the ground. This scene made Li Chengqian, Wei Shuyu, Zhang Sun, Du Go, Cheng Chumo, and even Gan Ziyuan cry. Thank you, sir, for saving our lives. May the heavens bless you, sir, to live a long life. Thank you, sir, for saving our lives. Chapter 566. If it was Zhang Feng's arrangement, Li Chengqian and the others might have resisted. They would have been reluctant. But now, when they saw this shocking scene, they really regarded Zhang Feng as a mentor from the bottom of their hearts. Li Chengqian took a deep breath and then shouted, "Everyone, from today onwards, Shao Mountain is your home. Everyone knows the rules, right? If you don't have money and want to work in lieu of labor, come to me and register." Du Go also sniffed. This was the first time he felt a surge of pride other than books. If you want to buy food, come to me. Cheng Chumo slammed his fist on a copper gong and roared. If you have the strength to be a bricklayer, or if you can carry something on your shoulders, or if you can be a carpenter, come to me. Even if you know how to make bamboo, or if you know how to make a kiln, you have to fucking come with me. Lao Tzu can't guarantee other things, but as long as Lao Tzu eats, you can *king eat. I want literate people regardless of age. As long as you can read, come to me. I want. Ganziyuan was dumbfounded. Seeing these famous stubborn people acting like this, he couldn't help but stare at the craftsman and roar. Mother *Ker, aren't you *king embarrassed? Didn't you complain that you don't have enough manpower? What the *ck are you standing there for? Go and *king work for Lao Tzu. Women don't just stand there. Go and *king cook. *ck your second uncle. As long as you're not dead, get your second uncle moving. Following a series of roars and howls, the entire White Deer College came to life. Zhang Feng sat in the room and listened to everything outside. He was silent. He was thinking about something. That was, how were they going to feed these people? There were already 5,000 people here. If more people came, it would be terrible. Zhang Feng hurriedly opened the door again and waved at Li Chengqian, who was extremely busy. Li Chengqian hurried over and asked, "What's the matter?" "I'm busy here." "Don't be busy. Didn't you bring 300 servants with you? Leave it to them. I have something to talk to you about. Go and call them over." Li Chengqian was stunned. Seeing Zhang Feng's serious face, he didn't say anything and hurried off. After a while, a few people hurriedly came again. Once they entered the door, Zhang Feng closed the door and called the guards that Li Chengqian brought over to guard the door. He said, "You saw it along the way. Things are not good now. It's only the first day, and there are already 5,000 people. What will happen after 10 days? So 20,000 dawn of grain isn't enough." Li Chengqian exposed Zhang Feng's words and said. Zhang Feng nodded. "That's true. So now I want you to go back and borrow grain. Just take it as Zhang Feng borrow it, okay?" Li Chengqian was silent. A few people were silent. How could they not know that they couldn't wait for hundreds of thousands of dawn of grain to fall from the sky and give each of them a stone? But the reality was cruel. Everyone knew the current situation. Even if they had grain, they were basically holding it to death. Who would be stupid enough to take it out? When Zhang Feng saw their expressions, his face could not help but sink. Was there really no hope? What should he do? These people at least wanted to live. But now, he was not a living Buddha and couldn't conjure grain. At this time, what should he do? Zhang Feng couldn't help but push open the window. It wasn't because he thought Cheng Chumo's feet were smelly, but because he wanted to see if there was any other way on the mountain. Outside the window, the trees that had been gnawed by locusts were now sprouting. And on the ground, there were traces of green. Where was the grain? Outside the window, in the north, in the depths of Shao Mountain, there was a dark place. That was the ranch where chickens, ducks, and pigs were stored. And next to the ranch was the brick kiln factory of Shao Mountain. There was no road here. Even if there was one, it wouldn't be able to transport the bricks up to Pyrolite Mountain in a short period of time. Therefore, under Zhang Feng's strong request, Li Chengqian and the others hurriedly found a kiln and built 8 brick kilns here. There was no lack of mud or wood on Shao Mountain, which made it a natural place for kilns. Most importantly, Zhang Feng was short of money. What made Zhang Feng overjoyed was that there was actually a limestone mine on this desolate mountain. This discovery made Zhang Feng go wild with joy for a very, very long time. This thing finally made Zhang Feng decide to do a big job here. He even put the place where the porridge was distributed here. But now it was all good. He played it big. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng's head started to hurt again. Sigh. Motherf asterisk cur. I was too careless. This grain, Motherf asterisk cur. What if there are more people? No, you guys think of a way for Lao Tzu. Li Changqian and the others heard this, looked at each other and finally sighed. We thought that you had everything planned out. So, Chapter 567. Zhang Feng wanted to curse, but he still couldn't find anyone. He couldn't help but sit down on the bench and stare blankly out of the window. What could he do to maximize the benefits of this little bit of food? Fengzi, I heard a rumor. We only need to hold on for half a month. Half a month later, a batch of food will arrive in Chang, and from Hunan province. Aren't you talking nonsense? Lao Tzu is asking how to hold on for now. Half a month? Who can eat 20,000 dawn of food in this half a month? Even 5,000 people won't be enough to eat. Zhang Feng slapped his forehead. However, Li Chengqian's words really made Zhang Feng heave a deep sigh of relief. Half a month? Zhang Feng couldn't help but think of a way. Li Chengqian, quickly go to Chang'an City and find someone for me. No matter what method you use, you have to find him for me. Who? Sun Simiao. Fengzi, why do you want me to find Dr. Sun Simiao for this matter? He won't be able to solve the problem even if he comes. Yes, if he's here, then everything will be easy. Zhang Feng said with certainty. There are only 20,000 dawn of food now. Even if each person eats 1 or 2 dawn of food a day, these 5,000 people will have to eat 500 dawn of food a day. This is only now. What if more people come? What if more people come to buy food? What about this? This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, if 5,000 people come every day, what should we do? If the imperial edict is issued, and there are students coming, what should we do? Li Chengqian and the others were silent. However, they couldn't connect this matter with Sun Simiao even if they were beaten to death. Sun Simiao can be called the king of medicine, so naturally, he has studied all kinds of plants in this mountain. If we can ask him to help us dig out all the edible things in this mountain, Buzz, Li Chengqian and the others couldn't help but feel a roar in their minds. That's not right, Fengzi. This mountain has long been emptied. As long as it's edible. Li Chengqian was about to say something, but before he could finish, his entire body froze. If it was any other place, not to mention grass, even tree bark would have been ground into powder and eaten. But where was this place? This was Mount E, the usually stingy Mount E. If Zhang Feng hadn't wanted to come here, who would have known about this barren mountain? They could not help but think of a bold idea. Zhang Feng, this guy, thought of something incredible again. Okay, then I'll go down the mountain now and see if I can get some food. As Li Chengqian spoke, he hurriedly left. Just as Li Chengqian left, old he and the others from Tong Huifang also brought pots, bowls, ladles, basins, or bags of things up the mountain. As soon as they arrived at the mountain gate, everyone was stunned by what they saw. The mountain was empty before, but what about now? How long had it been? All they could see were heads. Old he and the others couldn't help but ask the guards at the gate. Sir, we're looking for the person in charge here. We're his neighbors and he asked us to come. The person in charge? The imperial guards were stunned. They looked at the crown prince who had just left, then looked at the wooden house and then understood. Wait, I'll go and report. After a while, Zhang Feng, Cheng Chumo, and the others arrived at the mountain gate. When old he and the others saw Zhang Feng, they waved their hands. He waved his hand and shouted, Neighbors, give all the things you brought to Fengzi. Fengzi, this is the last bit of food left in my family. Take it for emergency. As old he spoke, he threw a deflated cloth bag full of pudding to Zhang Feng and waved his hand. Old he's family, go and do your work. By the way, young Master Du, what are we doing? Du Go was stunned. Zhang Feng was stunned. All the guards were stunned. Seeing the thousands of neighbors put the bags that were still warm in their arms at Zhang Feng's feet and slowly piled up, everyone's eyes were wet. The people who were working in the distance couldn't help but stare. They all stopped what they were doing and looked over. Old He. Zhang Feng took a deep breath and shouted angrily. He pulled Old He to the side and scolded. You brought all of your people here. What about your family? Family? My whole family is here. What about your daughter? I sent her to Miss Jingshu. When Zhang Feng heard this, he was anxious. Then your food. Before he could finish, Old He waved his hand and said with a serious face, Fengzi, we're neighbors, right? Yes. You helped us when we were in trouble. Now that you're in trouble, if we don't help you, who will? You're the pride of our Tonghui Square. So, your problems are the problems of the entire Tonghui Square. Okay, let's stop talking. Young Master Du, let's get to work. Don't be stunned. At this moment, a loud voice came from the mountain gate again. All the veterans of the Serenity Square have brought 30 dan of food to make a living. Brother Zhang, do you want us to be disabled? Chapter 568. Isin Pastry Shop. 90 dan of grain. Tufuzheng. 10 dan of grain. Baotai Bank. 130 dan of grain. Cripple Wang from Tong Hui Fong. 15 dan of grain. Yen Lai Restaurant. 300 dan of grain. Lord Niu from Chong and local government. 27 dan of grain and 1,200 strings of coins. Voices sounded one after another. In front of Zhang Feng, bags of grain were piled up like a mountain. Wei Shuyu and the others were trembling all over. What did Zhang Feng do that made so many people respond to his call? What did Zhang Feng do? Wasn't this what they wanted? But what about them? Other than relying on their fists and their father's name, who would care about them? Although everyone was respectful in front of him, what was he? Was that his own charm? No, it was those people who were afraid of him. But now, Zhang Feng didn't say a word, and these people who rarely interacted with him, even if they had never met him, were willing to send grain. What was this? This was where Zhang Feng's charm lay. Unconsciously, a touch of passion flashed in their eyes. Was this what they were going to learn in the future? Was this also what the academy was going to learn in the future? But at this moment, Zhang Feng took a deep breath, clasped his fist and said to everyone one by one, Thank you. Thank you for your kindness. I will remember everything today, and in the future. Hey, how can I wait for the future? If you don't mind, you can use my son. Even if he dies, it's because he doesn't have the ability. Not to mention my sons, if you like my old bones, I'll sell them to you in the future. But you have to provide me with food. Ha 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 ha. Old Zheng, do you want your son to learn how to butcher pigs? F***ck off. Lao Tzu's son will enter the Ministry of Works in the future. You'd better learn to be obedient, or when we become rich with Fengzi, you'll still be playing with mud. Ha ha ha. Good. Everyone, thank you for thinking so highly of me. I won't forget your help today. My academy doesn't have any requirements. As long as you want to learn, even if you are a blockhead, as long as you want to climb up, Zhang Feng, can't guarantee anything, but I can at least let you learn some skills that can at least feed your family in these 3 years. Zhang Feng said so. Instantly, there was a roar of exclamation and ecstasy. There were even some commoners who pressed down on their children and kowtowed to Zhang Feng. But at this time, those refugees were also anxious. My lord, can our family's child come? Even if it's just to pour some night incense for you. That's right, my lord. Just tell me, even if you want my child to do odd jobs, it's fine. Sir. Zhang Feng was a little embarrassed. He looked at Du Go and the others and said, I know that you were born with a golden spoon in your mouth. Are you confused? I didn't do anything, so why would they come here at this time? Why didn't they come here when they knew about the existence of the imperial edict? Why? Du Go and the others shook their heads. At this time, not only them, but everyone present was silent. Zhang Feng continued, This is not because I, Zhang Feng, have any ability. It is because I am on their side. What do they need? What they need is to learn how to read, to get rid of their slave status, to make a name for themselves. But you, from the moment you were born, you never thought about these things. Of course, you also have your own goals. That is to get rid of the identity of a merchant and enter the official career. And they are the same type of people as you and me. Everyone wants to take a step forward. That's why they were willing to take out the last bit of food they had when they saw these people who had no food to eat. This is not because they are noble, but because they want to help these people. They have always had a thought in their hearts. That is, no work, no reward. That is why they didn't come before. They were waiting for an opportunity. Otherwise, they would feel sorry in their hearts. They would feel that this matter will always be a sore point in their hearts. Confucius once said that to teach a person a profession, there must be a reward. I did not ask for money. This is not because I am noble, but because they are poor. So they used this method to gift to me. Otherwise, even if they are successful in their studies, they will still be pointed at behind their backs. Zhang Feng sighed and said, "Of course, my academy is not for everyone. If you want to come here, then you must participate in the construction of the academy. This is also a test. Money, I will set the rules here today. As long as it is the academy opened by me, Zhang Feng, anyone who wants to come here will not ask for money. But you must build your own residence here with your own hands and without anyone's help. This is the basics. If you can't even build your own residence, then may I ask, what is the use of learning this thing?" Chapter 569. Zhang Feng didn't have any other intentions. To put it bluntly, he just wanted to tell everyone that they could get free education. You could go to school for free here even if you were a blockhead. But at the very least, you had to have the ability to support yourself. If you didn't even have this ability, you should scram back to where you came from. However, the meaning of these words was even more different in everyone's ears. But now, Zhang Feng's words dispelled the worries of the people in Chang'an. On the other hand, he was telling the refugees that if they wanted to stay here, they had to rely on their own abilities. It was impossible for them to steal chickens and dogs. At this moment, after the citizens cheered for a while, they once again joined in the construction of the White Deer Institute in a frenzy. There was no other reason other than that they wanted to show Zhang Feng their capabilities. On the other side, Zhu Zi's father and the others were basically dragging their families along. Without Dugo saying anything, these people even brought a dozen big pots. Moreover, they were using the same kind of pots used to cook pigs' food. At this moment, more than a dozen pots were set up. Smoke rose in spirals from the kitchen chimneys. At this moment, on the other side, in front of Dugo, this kid still had some backbone. He didn't want a single person. He set up a small table and placed the 4 treasures of the study on it. He only called an old man who knew how to read and write. He checked the identities of the people who bought the food to see if there was one person per household. Then, he distributed the food and registered it. Although he was a little flustered previously, after more than a dozen people, he was able to start selling the food in an orderly manner. On the other side, Wei Shuyu, Cheng Chumo, and Zhang Sunchong were giving orders. No, it could be said that they were bare-chested and carrying pieces of rocks on their backs. Some of them had taken off their clothes and were only wearing a piece of cloth. They were jumping into the mud to make mud. Even the women and children were following the women at the construction site. They were scraping tree bark or weaving bamboo frames. Seeing this, Zhang Feng nodded in satisfaction. Looking at the busy old he, Zhang Feng quietly called old he to the side and said, "Old he, this porridge, you have to control it to the extent of 1 or 2 meters per person. First, pour the porridge into the dozens of big wooden barrels. You have to remember this clearly. Later, you call Zhu Zi's father or one of you go over there and catch 30 chickens and 30 ducks. Clean them all up, then take 3 big pots and boil it as hard as you can." Old he couldn't help but be stunned. "That's not right, Feng Zi. These chickens and ducks are such good things. How can you waste them like this? Logically speaking, if there wasn't enough food, wouldn't it be the same if they added some grass and roots? How could he add such a good item? Wouldn't that be a waste?" "You know nothing." Zhang Feng glared at old he. "Look, this is all physical work. How can you do it just by drinking? In less than 3 days, this person will be exhausted. Just do as I say. After saying that, Zhang Feng ignored old He, who was exasperated with his failure to live up to his expectations, and turned to Zhuzi's father and said, I have a bag of things in my house. Don't ask what it is. You only have 1 pot. When the porridge is ready, add 2 pounds of it to each pot. You ask and you do it. Zhuzi's father was still in a daze. When he reacted, Zhang Feng had already run away. Zhang Feng didn't do anything else. He was just tinkering with his new thing. He was tinkering with a porridge that could resist hunger. Bone-strengthening powder plus chicken, duck, and pig porridge. To put it bluntly, it was 8 treasures porridge. In this era, it was definitely not enough to just drink porridge. If a person's appetite was lacking in oil and water, even if you gave him a bowl of rice, he would still be able to finish it. However, if he was given enough oil and water, not only would he be able to save on food, but he would also be able to resist hunger and strengthen his body. This was the real good stuff. Previously, he had collected those locusts next door, which he didn't have time to sell, or prepared to use as feed for pigs, cows, and horses. Now, he got them all in baskets. Basically, this was a great help to him. However, only God knew how many more refugees would come by then. He only hoped that there would be fewer refugees. Otherwise, he would have a lot of fun. Thinking about it, Zhang Feng came to the pig farm in the valley. At this time, Zhang Tufu had already brought his son, Zhang Wenkai, and a large group of workers here to scold those craftsmen. They had hurt the pigs all over. Seeing Zhang Feng coming over, Zhang Tufu was shocked. He hurried over and said, Brother Zhang, this is not a place you can come to. It's too dirty. Go quickly. No, 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 I'm here for you. Zhang Feng pointed at the pigs, which numbered at least 3,000, and said, How about it? I'll leave all these to you. Is it okay? Zhang Tufu stared at him when he heard that. You're looking down on me, aren't you? Our Zhang family has been butchers for generations. We don't have any other skills, but we do have some skills when it comes to butchering and selling meat. But this group of bastards, how could they ruin these oily and slippery pigs like this? If these pigs are kept like this, they'll be finished sooner or later. Zhang Feng was interested. Then what do you think we should do with these pigs? Chapter 570. Hearing that, Zhang Tufu could not help but feel excited. Pointing at a rock, the two of them squatted on the rock and looked at the pigs in the open-air pig pen. Look at these pigs. They eat the grasshoppers so well that they look glossy and smooth. If you eat them at this time, the stench in the meat will lessen a lot. The most important thing is that these pigs are too fat. If they are kept like this, they will lose fat every day. My heart aches just looking at them. Zhang Feng could not help but shake his head when he heard that. I asked you to come here because of this. Do you know of a type of pig that can stretch up to 200 catties? What? 200 catties of fat pig? Zhang Tufu exploded. His exclamation attracted everyone's attention. Seeing that, Zhang Tufu hurriedly grabbed Zhang Feng's arm and asked in a low voice, Well, little brother, tell me, how can a pig grow up to 200 catties? My family has been dealing with pigs for several generations. I really didn't know that a pig could grow up to 200 catties. Are you sure this is true? In this era, pigs that could grow up to 150 catties had to have been reared for at least 3 to 5 years. However, the stench of the pig could be smelled even from a few streets away. This type of pig was basically kept for breeding, or an old sow. Otherwise, a normal pig wouldn't be able to reach 150 catties. The pig that Butcher Zhang gave to Zhang Feng last time was a pig that Butcher Zhang had been raising for 4.5 years. Although the pork was selling well, especially in the past few months, it was a different story for this kind of pig. Although it was embarrassing, it was very nutritious. Therefore, it was really rare to give something like this to someone. However, to be able to rear a 200 catties pig, and a big fat pig at that? How was that possible? Zhang Feng smiled faintly. You don't need to know how it grew up to 200 catties. You'll know when the time comes. Let me ask you, if I give this pig to you, will you take it? When the time comes, I'll make this pig farm suffer a huge loss. Not to mention Chang and City, even Tubo and Turkic people will come to buy our pigs. Are you willing to be the king of pigs? Yes. How could Zhang Tufu not do it? He had been dealing with pigs all his life. Now that he was here, not only could he find a successful husband for his son, but he could also put down his butcher knife and do other things. How could he not do it? However, Zhang Tufu still asked with uncertainty. Little brother Zhang, this pig is easy to deal with, but this is just a low-grade thing after all. Are you sure this thing will sell well when the time comes? Of course. But who told you that this pig is an animal? Just wait and see. When the time comes, I can guarantee that these pigs will grow to 200 pounds in less than half a year. Moreover, these pigs won't have any foul smell on them. This is something better than beef and mutton. Hearing this, Zhang Tufu's eyes turned red. A mouthful of phlegm was stuck in his throat, making gurgling sounds. Both of his hands gripped Zhang Feng tightly, causing Zhang Feng to grimace in pain. I say, isn't this just a pig? Do you have to be like this? If they had the fodder and the food I prepared, let alone half a year, they would be able to grow to 200 pounds in 3 months. I say you. Zhang Feng was not lying. There was actually a problem with this pig's breed. However, the most important thing was that the people of this era did not have the habit of feeding pigs. Basically, every pig was either a breeding pig or a sow. It would be strange if they tasted good. If he were to lose weight, he would no longer care about anything else. He would only know how to eat and sleep. It would be strange if he didn't gain weight. However, to the people of this era, all of this was too inconceivable. Zhang Feng patted Zhang Tufu, who was still rooted to the ground. Old Zhang, there's a lot to learn. If you do it, I'll pass on all my pig-rearing skills to you. What do you think? You want to pass on all your pig-rearing skills to me? You know how to rear pigs? Zhang Tufu went crazy. However, this was not important. What was important was that Zhang Feng was going to pass on his skills. Zhang Tufu could not help but kneel in front of Zhang Feng agitatedly and kowtow 3 times. No matter how hard Zhang Feng tried to pull him up, he could not. Zhang Feng did not care. Was this not a perfect pig-rearing system? Was this necessary? After settling Zhang Tufu down with much difficulty, Zhang Feng said, "Since you've agreed, then in a few days, I'll give you a secret. You must not tell anyone. I promise, even if the heavenly King Lao Tzu asks, I, old Zhang, will not tell anyone." Zhang Tufu swore for a while. Zhang Feng was speechless again. All right, it's all up to you. However, you have to go back to your old profession. Kill a pig, kill one every day. Remove the foul smell, chop it up and throw it into the pot to stew. When the foul smell is gone, pour it into the bowl of porridge. Remember, you must dare to do it before these people start eating. As he spoke, Zhang Feng took out a small cloth bag from his chest and handed it to Zhang Tufu. You know what's inside. When the time comes, go to the pharmacy and get me some more. Every time you get pork, give me this bag. Also, don't be stingy with the salt. Put in what you need. Zhang Feng instructed Zhang Tufu on some matters. Zhang Tufu opened the cloth bag subconsciously. The cloth bag contained nothing but star anise, cinnamon, bay leaves, and so on. Zhang Tufu could not help but be stunned. Were these not the usual medicinal herbs from the pharmacy? Could this be pork? Chapter 571. Li Chengqian was very busy. On Yulon Mountain, he had been greatly affected. This was especially true when he saw those people kneel before Zhang Feng, and when old he and the others brought their families with them, all of them bringing their last grain with them. As the crown prince, when would he ever have such prestige? He had heard everything Zhang Feng had said, but he had not stepped forward. He had memorized everything Zhang Feng had said from a distance. Once they reached the foot of Yulon Mountain, Li Chengqian urged his horse and his guards back to the Eastern Palace. The moment he entered, he issued 3 orders. Pass on my order. Hurry and find divine Dr. Sun Simiao. Second, take my crown prince token and go from house to borrow grain. If you lend it to this crown prince today, once the famine is over, this crown prince will return to Dan. Third, gather all the properties under the Eastern Palace and sell everything that should be sold, especially this one's fields. Sell them all for grain. The eunuchs and guards of the Eastern Palace were all dumbfounded. What was wrong with the crown prince? He had been fine just a moment ago. It had only been a day since they last met. But he had almost sold the entire Eastern Palace? This matter had also alarmed the Crown Princess, Ho Junji's daughter. The Crown Princess rushed into the study, and when she saw Li Chengqian's anxious face, she couldn't help but cry. "Crown Prince, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly—" Li Chengqian's eyes brightened at the sight of the Crown Princess, and he grabbed her hand. "Beloved consort, I remember that your father has 1,000 mu of fertile land, right?" The Crown Princess was taken aback. She nodded. "That's wonderful. Right now, let's write a letter to Lord Father-in-law. I want to borrow grain from him." "How much grain does your Highness Crown Prince want to borrow from old man?" At this moment, Ho Junji slowly walked out of the rear hall, his hands behind his back. Li Chengqian hastily got up and bowed as a junior would. In truth, there was no need for this sort of greeting between him and Ho Junji. Although they were father and son-in-law, they were still sovereign and subject. But Li Chengqian was truly anxious at this moment. "Father-in-law, your arrival is truly wonderful. Do you have any more grain?" Ho Junji's eyes flashed. "If you had asked yesterday, that old man would have given you 300 to 500 stones without a second thought." "But, Sai." Li Chengqian was shocked and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" Ho Junji patted Li Chengqian on the shoulder and gestured for the Crown Princess to leave. Then he said, "A few days ago, His Majesty summoned all of us back to the capital precisely because of the food shortage. During the morning court session today, the old man did not see you. Just what were you busy with? Why did I hear that you were tinkering with White Deer College on some abandoned mountain outside Chang and city? Isn't this a wedding disturbance? As the Crown Prince, how can you mess around with those commoners? Also, why don't you consider your identity and the impact this matter would have on the court? When the old man was in Luozhou, he often heard that you don't attend court and often go to Chang'an. Now the officials have a lot of opinions about you." Ho Junji was rather dissatisfied with the Crown Prince's recent actions. He didn't know what the Crown Prince was doing, and he even suspected that the Crown Prince was intentionally concealing this information. And no one else besides the Emperor could do this. He didn't know what the Emperor was doing, but all the strange phenomena in Chang'an city seemed to revolve around one person. That person was Zhang Feng. From the establishment of that strange university in Chang and to this White Deer College, the Emperor had actually personally issued a decree. What did this mean? Moreover, he dared to conclude that this Zhang Feng had an extremely close relationship with the Crown Prince. After receiving all this information, Ho Junji was certain that all the countermeasures had to do with Zhang Feng. The fine salt, the way to deal with Tubo and the other countries, the control of the locust plague, and so on. Which one of these wasn't a magnificent feat that could stun the world? But he knew that none of these things could have been done by Li Shimin, nor could they have been done by people like Fang Xianling or Du Ruhui. And they certainly couldn't have been done by the Crown Prince. Everything was clear. All of this had been done by Zhang Feng. This was also very strange. What was Zhang Feng up to? Why was he doing this? Moreover, Ho Junji could vaguely sense a change in the Crown Prince's behavior. The Crown Prince had always been extremely respectful to him, and they had maintained a constant correspondence. But in the past half a year, the letters had stopped. Ho Junji couldn't help but wonder why. But based on the Crown Prince's actions today, there seemed to be a major problem. Fortunately, Li Shimin's other sons had not participated in this matter. Otherwise, he would have had to go to Shao Mountain and see for himself just what sort of divine figure this Zhang Feng was. He, Ho Junji, had decided on the future emperor, and no one could lightly shake his position. Ho Junji's eyes flashed as he stroked his beard. "Crown Prince, there's no need to be impatient. As the heir apparent, you should show the demeanor you should have. What do you need grain for? Is it for Shao Mountain?" Li Chengqian nodded. "Truly is for Shao Mountain. At least 6,000 disaster victims have gathered at Shao Mountain, and one of my brothers has stored up 20,000 dan of grain to help the disaster victims. But 20,000 dan still isn't enough. Thus, this prince wants to see if he can go down the mountain and gather some more grain." Ho Junji asked a few more questions, and then he narrowed his eyes and walked around the Crown Prince's study for around an hour. Finally, he said, "I can give you 10,000 dan of grain, but you have to tell His Majesty about this matter in court, or else I won't give you a single coin. Oh. Chapter 572. Ho Junji's final words caused Li Chengxian's eyes to brighten. How could he not know what Ho Junji was talking about? On the contrary, he was keenly aware of what was going on. It was precisely because he knew what Ho Junji was talking about that Li Chengxian couldn't help but hesitate. He clearly knew what his father-in-law was thinking. He wanted nothing more than to preserve his position as heir apparent. But in truth, before Zhang Feng had appeared, he truly had been extremely worried about this. He had been worried that his fourth brother, Qin Ke, might be his greatest enemy. It was simply because his fourth brother was too beloved by his imperial father and imperial mother. In the past, he truly had been very wary of Li Tai, but that was all in the past. After Zhang Feng appeared, he clearly felt that his imperial father wasn't biased in this matter. At the very least, he hadn't allowed Li Tai to study at the academy. But even if he did come to the academy, given his domineering personality, would Zhang Feng care about him? If he wasn't killed by Zhang Feng, it would be because Li Tai was lucky. But he was different. He had long since called Zhang Feng his brother, and Li Chengxian believed that this friendship was extremely firm. At the very least, Zhang Feng basically told him everything. Take this matter as an example. Although it seemed like Zhang Feng was making random arrangements, upon careful consideration, Li Chengxian understood what Zhang Feng was thinking. Chang Chumo and the others were skilled in the army. Although carrying bricks didn't seem to have anything to do with that, Li Chengxian vaguely sensed that there was nothing wrong with Zhang Feng's arrangements. The reason was that Du Go liked to study mathematics, so he had arranged for Li Chengxian to do this, so that Li Chengxian could use it in his daily life. But while he couldn't see anything wrong with his mission, Li Chengxian vaguely sensed that he was acting as the steward of White Deer College. Otherwise, why would he leave the matter of registering names and searching for people to him? If he really was the son of a merchant, then finding Sun Simiao would mean that he was trying to make friends with someone of high status. But, however, this was exactly what Li Chengxian lacked. If he could make use of this to settle this matter, wouldn't these people's connections all recognize him? That would be very useful to the imperial court. After all, Sun Simiao was a miracle doctor. His status was extremely important. Li Chengxian was in a daze. Moreover, there would occasionally be a look on his face that said he had everything under control. How could the shrewd Ho Junji not see it? Your Highness the Crown Prince, this old man shall not disturb you any further. I will be attending the morning assembly tomorrow as well. At that time, it will be up to your Highness the Crown Prince. Hearing this, Li Chengxian bowed. Duke Chun, thank you for your concern for the people. On behalf of the people in Chang, and who were affected by the disaster, I thank you, Duke. Ho Junji meaningfully glanced at Li Chengxian before indifferently saying, I must ask Crown Prince to forgive the Crown Princess. It was old man who did not properly educate her, so it was inevitable that she would offend Crown Prince in some matters. With these words, Ho Junji left. Li Chengxian didn't think too much about it. Ho Junji's grain was enough to stabilize the disaster relief on Shao Mountain, but it was far from enough. Just as Zhang Feng had said, there was still no telling how many students would come. Basically everyone in Chang and city that could come had arrived, and those who had yet to arrive were still watching. If students from other places came, those people in Chang and city who were watching would definitely hurry over. When the time came, there was still a shortage of grain. Li Chengxian sighed. Then he hurried out of the Eastern Palace. The moment Li Chengxian left the Eastern Palace, someone reported the matter of the Crown Prince and Ho Junji to Li Shimin. Li Shimin couldn't help but be taken aback by this news. What did you say? The Crown Prince is borrowing grain? In the imperial study, Li Shimin was wearing a thin robe with an imperial robe draped over his body. Although it was stuffy and hot, how could Li Shimin have the leisure to go to the pavilion in the middle of the lake to enjoy the cool air? All the memorials were asking for grain, grain, and grain. Li Shimin even felt like killing someone. And now, he had heard that Ho Junji had gone to see the Crown Prince, and that the Crown Prince had issued 3 orders upon returning from Shao Mountain. Sell property, sell land, and trade for grain. He had even sent someone with the Crown Prince's token to receive grain. Li Shimin couldn't help but think of something. That was Shishan. He hurriedly asked, "We ask you, what is the current situation on Shao Mountain?" Little Gizi hastily replied, "Your Majesty, according to the reports of our scouts, after the message was sent last night, nearly 6,500 people have gone up Shao Mountain." Li Shimin couldn't help but slightly frown. 6,500 people? So many? Then how many disaster victims are accommodated in Chang and city every day? Your Majesty, 3,000 people enter Chang, and every day after their identities are confirmed, and they are all gathered around the reclining square. In the last few days, more than 10,000 disaster victims have entered Chang'an, and those who were unable to enter Chang'an and those who were on their way have all gone up Shao Mountain. Chapter 573. This is bad. Li Shimin's face darkened when he heard that. Summon Fang Xianling now. Your Majesty, Fang Xianling is waiting outside. Summon him. A moment later, Fang Xianling entered the imperial study. They had not seen each other for a few days. Fang Xuanling's face was full of vicissitudes. His cloudy eyes were bloodshot. His gray hair was gathered together carelessly. Even his crown was slanted, as if it was about to fall off. Li Shimin, who was a little angry, could not help but calm down when he saw Fang Xuanling's appearance. Fang Xianling, how is the disaster relief in Chang and city coming along? Your Majesty, I'm sorry for my incompetence. Fang Xianling knelt down and kowtowed. Li Shimin put down the booklet and helped Fang Xianling up personally. He asked, "Tell me about it." "Yes." Fang Xianling said, 3 days ago, I was ordered to open the granary in Chang'an City for disaster relief. But the granary in Guanlong was also opened at the same time. Our treasury was supposed to give out 100 dan of food every day. But the people in Guanlong were spreading rumors that the food in our treasury was old. There were even rumors that there were more than 100,000 dan of food in our treasury. And the disaster victims believed the rumors. They kept asking for food. There were even robberies. Then, the people in Guanlong opened the granary. The price of food, which was originally 5 copper coins, skyrocketed to 13 copper coins within a day. When Li Shimin heard this, a murderous aura suddenly emerged. Bang! Li Shimin slapped the bookshelf hard and roared angrily. Didn't I order the treasury to suppress the price of food? Why is the price of food so fierce? Your Majesty, the granary was indeed open to the public, but many of the people who came to buy food died mysteriously. Many more were robbed by mysterious people. Then there was a rumor that the food in the granary was inauspicious. The locust god had returned to punish the people who came to buy food. Fang Xianling didn't dare to say another word. How could Li Shimin not know what he was going to say next? Li Shimin was so angry that his teeth were bleeding. Good, very good. Seeing that we're facing a disaster, I won't lower myself to their level, but they actually think that I don't dare to kill? Men, pass on my decree. Mobilize the Chang and garrison and the secret agents of the Ministry of Justice. Kill anyone who dares to act rashly. Anyone who dares to spread rumors will be killed. Anyone who dares to raise prices will be killed. If the root cause is found, 9 generations of the clan will be executed. Li Shimin really wanted to kill him. However, when Fang Xianling heard this, he couldn't help but be shocked. Your Majesty, right now is the time of the disaster. If we were to fall out with Guanlong at this time, wouldn't the ones who suffer be the victims? This old subject earnestly requests Your Majesty to take back the order. It won't be too late to wait until the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Appointments have finished their investigations. Take it slow. Li Shimin was so angry that he laughed. Then tell me, what should I do with the victims of the disaster in Chang'an City? Every day that passes, my people will starve to death. What should I do? What do you want me to do? When Fang Xianling heard this, he hurriedly knelt on the ground. Shao Gizi also hurriedly knelt down. Your Majesty, I think that Elder Fang's words are very good. If we make such a big fuss at this time, won't we alarm the grass snake? Guanlong's people just want to take the opportunity to see Your Majesty's attitude, but they don't dare to go too far. If Your Majesty really raises your hand, the people in Chang'an will definitely die. However, I think that the reason why they are doing this is not to test your majesty. When Li Shimin heard this, he couldn't help but frown again. The atmosphere in the imperial study became heavy again. When Xiao Gizi saw this, he hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, isn't the crown prince borrowing food now? I think that if we start from this matter, on the one hand, we can dispel those people's claws and teeth. On the other hand, we can let the people see that your Majesty cares about the country and the people. This kind of reassurance is more practical than killing thousands of people." When Li Shimin heard this, his eyes couldn't help but light up. "Good, that's a good plan. Fang Gonggong, quickly take my token to the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Works, and the Ministry of Appointments. Find everyone behind this matter for me. Kill those who should be killed. Leave no one alive. But you know what to do." When Fang Xianling heard this, he hurriedly knelt down. This old subject obeys. After Fang Xianling left with the order, Li Shimin couldn't help but put down the booklet in his hand. Borrowing food? Interesting. Li Shimin suddenly thought of something from Li Chengxian's actions. Although Li Chengxian's actions now seemed so abrupt, Li Shimin couldn't help but think of something, especially the 5 clans and 7 kingdoms. These 7 clans controlled most of the wealth of the Tang dynasty. If he could use this method at this time, on the one hand, he could test which side they wanted to take. On the other hand, he could give them a chance. To put it bluntly, Guanlong wasn't scary. The scary ones were the 7 clans. Although the Li clan originated from the Li clan of Longxi, this thing was already very faint. "It's time for me to take a walk,"